Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. It's your DC Spotlight for the week of July 4th, 2024. Happy San Diego Comic-Con for all those that celebrate. I am actually at the convention. I'm in San Diego right now through the magic of pre-recording, joining you here for the DC books of the week. So, I mentioned it before. For those that didn't see either of our DC All-In videos, I'm going to be at a lot of the DC panels. I'll be live tweeting them and covering them, showing you pictures, the graphics and the sneak preview pages and what have you that they're going to show in the room. So be sure you're following the Comic Source on Twitter so you can check that out. And I've got a ton of DC interviews set up, right? Mark Waid, Jason Aaron, G. Willow Wilson, Ram V. God, who am I forgetting? Did I say Jason Aaron?
Yeah.
Mark. Yeah. So many. I'm forgetting. Nicole Maines. Nicole Maines is another one. So yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of DC information for y'all, and just be sure you're following the Comic Source. Some of those interviews I probably won't have time to produce them and get them out till after the show's over, but there'll be a lot of great information. So be sure you check it out. For those that aren't there, sorry, I know you probably wish you could be there. It's one big nerd party. It's so much fun. So again, just be sure you're following the Comic Source on social media, because that's where most of the content will come out during the show, and then after the show, I'll release all the interviews in the week following. But anyway, we're here to talk about the DC books for July 24th, and it's such a weird week because I feel like the week of San Diego Comic-Con, everything's focused on San Diego Comic-Con and all the announcements that come out. And as has happened in previous years, people try to get ahead of it, and they do things actually ahead of Comic-Con, because the comic book news, once, comic book movies started taking over, and Marvel does have a panel there, and all the news that comes out of Comic-Con that gets the most attention is all the television and feature film and streaming series, that sort of stuff. And comics, unfortunately, their announcements in the news can kind of take a backseat. And so comic publishers in the past few years have started to announce things earlier so it doesn't get lost in the noise. But I always feel like the books that come out, not just DC, but all the books that come out the Wednesday of San Diego Comic-Con, like, they hardly get any attention. They're not talked about. I almost feel like it should be a skip week. I really do, because nobody can focus on it, because all the news is all focused on the new stuff that's being announced. Like, you're not going to see a bunch of articles on probably not even Nice House by the Sea, which is probably the biggest DC book that comes out this week. You're going to see articles about stuff that was announced at the panels, about All In, about the Absolute Universe, about what's coming 2-3 months from now, not the books that are actually out this week, which, again, I feel like, can all the publishers agree? Can we just agree to just skip the week of San Diego Comic-Con? Give everybody a chance, give everybody's wallet a rest, be like, I'm going to actually bring that up to some comic book publishers when I'm there, and be like, I'm sure they won't, it would never be up to them. It would be up to the parent companies. And if you're a small publisher, you can't skip if Marvel and DC aren't skipping. It would be up to Marvel and DC to skip. But obviously nobody that I talk to there is going to be able to make that decision. It would be somebody at Disney. It would be somebody at Warner Brothers Discovery that would make that decision. But I don't know. I think it would be good.
Well, I hate to differ with you, but I've never been to San Diego Comic-Con, and most of, I can speak probably for most Canadians. We go through our entire life to never been to a larger comic conventions. I have, but San Diego, I want comic books during the week of San Diego Comic-Con. I want something to read.
Yeah, but my point being, don't you think that, like, this week doesn't get as much attention? You're kind of, you can go pick up your books and you can read them, but as far as the press goes, there's not really much coverage.
Well, I suppose that's true, but there's still people that review the comics. I know what you're saying. I don't disagree with the hype train. Obviously, is what they make at San Diego, but it's well, hey, I wouldn't. We have annuals week. Every whatever, twice a year we have annuals week, fifth week of the month or whatever. Yeah. So we could probably have something right. Similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it's not a fifth, it'll never be a fifth week, because it's usually the fourth week of July.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, do your annuals and your specials. At least make it a lighter week.
Yeah.
I think that would be in the best interest of everybody. But
Or even
anyway,
have comics that are related to what's being released at San Diego, like teaser comics or something, very related to the I don't know, related to some of the news releases, or like
yeah, I'm curious. I remember last year I guess 2 years ago they gave out the Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, and it was the first time it had the full title, right? Because before that it was just Dark Crisis, and they re-released the #1 with the full title.
yeah.
It's not often that DC gives out a preview book or what have you. I wouldn't expect to get like a preview of the flip book, but what they usually do, you go to their panel, one of their panels, and they give you this little piece of cardboard that has an enamel pin in it, and it has a space for enamel pins for all the other panels. So if you go to all the panels, you like collect them. It's like a little mini set of pins. A lot of people do that, but anyway, yeah. It's a decent week of DC books. I will say that. So I'm glad we're talking about it ahead of time. Hopefully it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Yeah. Really interesting week. Quality books, not all what I expected, especially when we get to the Origins, the Absolute Power Origins book, completely not what I expected. Some books exceeded expectations. Some books expectations are very low and exceeded expectations. Some books where expectations were higher and they still exceeded. And then some books were just kind of meh. So yeah, overall, just a little bit of a mixed bag this week. What did you think, Rocky?
Yeah, I agree. It was a mixed bag. There was one standout that, I mean, there was only one pick of the week for me. Nothing else even came close. I will say that. But I will say that. But it wasn't bad. It was a mixed bag with a very easy choice for me for pick of the week.
Really, I'm curious because there was two books for me, and I still haven't decided which. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay, I mean, you got me curious now as to what you chose, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's kick it off with Batman Dark Age. We're up to issue number 4. Mark Russell's the writer. Mike Allred on art. Laura Allred on colors. Dave Sharp on letters. It's book 4. And it's basically, I suppose we'd say Robin's origin, if you will. Yeah. And I've gone on record before as saying I'm not the biggest fan of Mike Allred's art in terms of just the thicker line weight that he uses. And you especially can see it around characters' eyes. They all look like they're wearing mascara or eyeliner. It's so funny. They're all emo. But I have to say, based on the sort of the time period that this is set in, I really dig Mike Allred's art. The style, the aesthetic that his art has, it is perfectly suited for the time frame that this is set in, kind of like the 60s sort of mod feeling. And this is probably my favorite issue of Mike Allred art that I've ever seen. Like, I just loved it, from the crazy designs of the Riddler and Penguin's costume to the initial costume with this helmet sort of thing that Robin is wearing the first time that we see him. I just loved it. Like, I've never enjoyed his art more than I have. So I don't know, maybe I'm becoming an Allred fan. Maybe I'm getting used to those heavier line weights. But in terms of the story, yeah, it's different enough. I mean, we talked about this when we had one of our all-in episodes recently, and just how much Batman there is. But I'm okay. This is Black Label. It's an alternate Batman. In fact, it's a Bruce Wayne that's sort of relating this story, who's much older. He's kind of in a retirement home. And he's thinking back to these events. One thing I could have done without, probably the only thing I didn't like about the issue, and I'm sure you know what it is, Rocky. We got the Joker showing up. I really could have done without that. It clearly, and now I haven't seen the movie, but from what I know of the Joaquin Phoenix version of Joker, that seems to be what this version of Joker is kind of similar to. He's trying to be a stand-up comedian, except not really. He washes dishes at this club so he can basically get time on stage, a few minutes, 2 to 4 minutes on stage, and doesn't tell any jokes, just gets up there and bitches and moans. And people show up to see him like, oh my God, this would not happen in real life. This may be the most fantastical thing I've ever seen in a comic ever, that somebody would just get up there and bitch about their life and people would show up to watch. Be like, dude, get off the stage. It's a comedy club. I'm here to laugh, to kind of escape the cynical view of society or whatever, and you're up there complaining. So yeah, I could have done without the Joker, but it's a small nitpick. Overall, I really enjoyed the story. I enjoy where it's going. I liked the fact that we got a Harley Quinn here. I like the fact, well, Dr. Harley Quinzel, she hasn't been turned into Harley Quinn yet. We got a Chase Meridian. Dick Grayson, Robin has a little bit of a different story. And then at the end, Ra's al Ghul shows up. And what's interesting is we're not told why. We're not told why Ra's al Ghul is there, who hired him, if anyone, or is he doing things on his own. But he's basically warning Bruce, hey, you can't be Batman anymore. I'm going to destroy everything you love if you don't stop being Batman. And he's already started, he says, and they look out the window and they see Arkham Asylum burning. So really curious to see, is this this version of Ra's al Ghul finally taking agency? Because we know before he was, being directed by the U.S. government. He was a colonel in some sort of, I guess, the U.S. Army. I never said for sure, but he eventually had that rank, and then he trained Bruce and a bunch of other people during the Vietnam War as these covert operatives. But what is he doing here in Gotham? What exactly are his motives? Why does he want Bruce to stop being Batman? Like, so many questions to be answered, but I really enjoyed this issue. Probably without question, my favorite issue of the series so far. What did you think of it?
It was very additive. A lot of substance this issue. A lot happened, and I really liked it. You mentioned all the characters already. His love interest is Dr. Chase Meridian, and for the first time in his life, Bruce Wayne actually gets closer to someone, and it's maybe a little bit of subversion of expectation. It's not Catwoman. Catwoman is somebody who is more the villain the type, but Catwoman does show up and actually help Batman in a number of scenes. Roman Sionis, who is this universe's Black Mask, who is the head of Wayne Enterprises, is actually taken out by the mobster Falcone, and whose making a power play there with Wayne Enterprises. Bruce Wayne continues to be someone who is technically a CEO, of course, of Wayne Enterprises, utilizing Wayne Enterprises for his nocturnal activities as Batman, while at the same time, Wayne Enterprises is also in fact, the cause of a lot of Gotham's Gotham's problems. And so there's that interesting dilemma that lies at the core of this story that underpins it, and I think adds to its narrative. We see this version of Dick Grayson. As you said, Riddler, Penguin, and it's done in a I won't say it's done in a totally completely unique way, but there's enough different about it that it's intriguing. It's like, well, that's interesting. It's just slightly different. There's enough familiar about these characters, thanks to Mike and Laura Allred's art, that it's a very stylistic art. As you said, I like it. You've grown to appreciate it more, and I think it works. And I'm interested to see how this story is going to end. Pariah did not show up this issue, and Pariah is sort of like that multiversal being that sort of seems to show up. He showed up in the Superman Space Age, and he played a role, and we know that ultimately this is leading to the destruction, presumably, of this Earth. He doesn't show up this issue, maybe next issue. So the central mysteries of this tale are still here, but this issue just continues to pull us into this world that, frankly, I'm sure is just going to build up to a climax. And as I say again, I said it last time, I enjoy this Batman Dark Age more than I enjoyed Superman Space Age already. So I'm definitely on board for this, and I'm really curious to see how these plot threads are going to intermingle and intersect. And Ra's al Ghul showing up at the end was a nice touch.
Yeah, I just got confirmation. Tom Taylor, add him to my list. People I'm talking to at San Diego Comic-Con.
Nice.
You mentioned, I'll probably talk a little bit. I mean, we got to talk about what he's going to do in Detective, obviously, and talk a little Nightwing, and probably throw some Titans in there as well, although I won't be spending a lot of time on Titans. But anyway, you mentioned something that I sort of wasn't consciously aware of with Batman Dark Age, but maybe that's why I like it so much. I've gone on record several times that I don't really care for the Batman-Catwoman relationship. And you're right. Like, he has a different love interest here. It doesn't seem to be much love lost between him and Catwoman. Maybe that's why I'm digging this so much. So anyway, I'm not going to have a lot to say about this next book. It's Power Girl number 11. Leah Williams is the writer. Adriana Mello is the artist. Colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr. Letters by Becca Carey. I am typically a pretty big fan of Leah Williams. I think she's a great writer. I'm not seeing that in this series. And it goes back to something you said when we did the All-In Solicits episode, the DC October Solicits. It's boring. It's just boring. The first third of the issue is her and her roommate bantering back and forth. I don't care. There's just nothing interesting about this. And, you know, if you're trying to differentiate Power Girl from Supergirl, and it feels like that's what they're trying to do, instead you're just making her boring. And this is kind of a day in the life sort of stuff. I'm not feeling it. Like, I don't care about this version of Power Girl enough that you can do these kind of stories yet. If you establish her as like, highlight the differences, how you want to do it and make it work, then you can do these kind of stories. But I think it's a little bit of cart ahead of the horse here. I just don't care about Paige Stetler enough. That's not who Power Girl is to me. And what doesn't help is the fact that, you know, we still have Power Girl showing up in JSA because it's taking forever to come out. That is not this character. They're two completely different characters. Characterization is completely different. She's drawn differently. Like, it's just like, oh my God, just give us a Power Girl that's interesting. You want to change her up? Whatever, change her up. You know, I don't own her. It's not up to me. I don't make the decision. But if you want to change her up, you got to make her interesting. They haven't done that. But you also have to only have her in this book, right? Establish who she is now, but make her interesting. And then have her branch out and she can show up in other books or whatever. But you got to be sure, again, it comes down to DC editorial. When she shows up in those other books eventually, you have to stay true to whatever reimagining or changes that you made. And again, she's got to be interesting. But right now, it's like she's all over the place. Worse than Harley Quinn in a way, because it's two completely polar opposite. You know, this Power Girl we have here, not only is she boring, she's very full of self-doubt. She's unsure of herself. There's no agency to her. Whereas the Power Girl in JSA is a Power Girl that we've always loved. You know, she's a very strong character, very strong female character, both in terms of her personality and her ability to be an asset for the team with her super strength and what have you. Like two completely different personalities, completely different. So yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but DC is failing Power Girl tremendously. I guess maybe I have a better understanding now of how Tim Drake fans felt, the ones that didn't like the fact that they were experimenting with his sexuality or what have you, and they felt totally betrayed. That's kind of how I feel with Power Girl. Like, I don't even know what I know which one I prefer, but I don't know which one she truly is right now. I guess it's this one because it's the regular series, but oh my God, is this version boring? So yeah, I will say a couple positive things. There are some awesome variant covers. One by Lee Inhook and the other by Terry Dodson that are amazing. But as far as what's between the pages, yeah, not a fan. So what do you think?
Well, I will say that I generally am. There were aspects of Lee Williams' Power Girl at the beginning that I really liked. I was really hoping there'd be more of a focus on what was, frankly, a more different universal take based on her Earth 2 origin, and I wanted that to be, frankly, I wanted that to be more interesting than it turned out to be. Ultimately, it just ends up being that Symbiote ship is just has the body of a lion now, and it's just disappointing. It went in a direction that I don't, even that was kind of boring. Now I will say in a number of interesting things happened in this issue that might lead to Paige Stetler, the new name for Power Girl, to be perhaps not as boring. And one of the things is Lois Lane actually technically fires her off her column, not because Power Girl isn't good at being a reporter, but because she wants to basically have her do some different kind of reporting. And Power Girl says something to Lois Lane that I thought very interesting. She says that I practically invented the name Paige Stetler because I wanted to do some unbiased reporting on tech, on the tech industry. That's decidedly not what my understanding was why she changed her name to Paige Stetler. since we now know that apparently that is the reason why she changed her name to Paige Stetler, because she was a reporter, that's a really stupid reason. That's even more of a dumb. You changed your name to Paige Stetler because of your. She actually says that was part of her motivation. I just think that's a dumb reason. There's lots of people that have pseudonyms that you don't actually change your real name, but that's a minor little gripe. This is a dating issue. I don't understand. She's dating this Axel character. This was the first third of the issue was boring as hell. Her once again talking to Omen, very boring. There's a couple pages I don't understand when I think they're arguing as roommates, and I guess I must have missed the memo, but I didn't know Power Girl had the power set to be able to teleport. I didn't know she could do that. I guess I must have had a brain fart. Power Girl can teleport from area to area. I didn't know she could do that. So I must have missed that. I know she can astral punch. I didn't know she could teleport. In any event, Axel being potentially a member of Asgardian. He's from Asgard. So this Axel character actually. There were some nice comical moments. They went to an aquarium and they discovered each other's identity, and I thought there were some humorous moments between the two of them when he actually at one moment Axel, there's a scene where Axel says, "Oh my God, you're Power Girl, but you can't be. Your Power Girl's like hot." It's like he's so taken aback that I will say that if Power Girl, when she's wearing as Paige Stetler, when she's wearing the glasses, she looks like a sexy librarian with big breasts. I don't think there's that much of a difference between looking at Power Girl and looking at Paige Stetler, if you want to be really blunt. But I kind of went with it a bit. Don't tell me that Paige Stetler isn't looking hot. That dialogue while I thought it was comical, it didn't work. I don't think Axel would have said it quite that way. So even that was a little bit off, but it had some humor to it. At the end of the day, it's not bad. It promises to be a little bit more interesting in the future issues, because at least Axel is from Asgard and he's going to take her to Valhalla, and we'll get more of that next issue. And hopefully with Paige and Axel being together in Valhalla, maybe it won't be so boring.
One would hope.
Yeah.
One would hope. Again, because I think I feel like she's doing the best with probably the editorial mandate she's been given, but like I want Leah Williams to be writing the old school Power Girl. That would be awesome.
Yeah,
but
I
this
agree.
whole Settler stuff, yeah. I mean, you're right. Like, I changed my name to be a new paper.
She used to own a computer tech company. She used to be a billionaire. That's far more interesting than this.
Yeah, and you do wonder. You alluded to it when we did the solicits episode. Did they change her name away from Karen Starr because the name Karen has that negative connotation now, do you think? Or is it just that they were trying or is it that Karen sounds too much like Kara or Kara, which is Supergirl's name? And again, they're trying to differentiate between the two. Maybe it's a little bit of both. I don't know, but I don't like it. Like in Paige,
Paige but even that, if you're going to differentiate Power Girl, why make her a reporter at the Daily Planet? You change your name to Paige, and then you make her a reporter at the Daily Planet, and you give her glasses.
And apologies to anybody out there whose name is Paige, but I don't think Paige is a particularly good. Like when I hear Paige, I think about a page in a book. Like it's not. People are out there complaining about my name, I'm sure, but anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have Zatanna bring down the house, issue number 2. Black Label, written by Mariko Tamaki, drawn and colored by Javier Rodriguez, lettered by Hassan Atsman Elhau. Mariko Tamaki is introducing some other ideas here, some ideas of Zatanna's father, being like this big guru that started this sort of secret cabal of magicians called the Casters. We haven't learned a whole lot about them, but apparently this person that we saw in the first issue that showed up to every one of Zatanna's shows, the Stranger, as Zatanna referred to them as, and that's actually the name they go by. They are a part of this secret cabal as well. And it's clear that something happened in the past. This organization, these Casters, they blame Zatanna for the death or the disappearance of her father. It's not clear. I sort of think he's going to end up showing back up. That'll be kind of her redemptive moment. We know in the DC main continuity that he's dead, but she had her and accessing her actual magic abilities had something to do with his disappearance / death. And they certainly blame her. And she has sort of this mental block and doesn't actually believe she can do magic. She says, I don't do magic. I just do tricks, right? She doesn't believe that she actually has the ability to wield supernatural powers. So a really interesting take on Zatanna. I'm enjoying it so far. And the art does work, but I'd be lying if I said that I don't prefer like a sexier Zatanna. Like, I think of Zatanna, like some of the first images that come to mind are those amazing Adam Hughes covers that are now very highly sought after from her series. And that's sort of who I think about. And again, it's not that she's not attractive the way that Javier Rodriguez draws her, but this aesthetic and the coloring, it's not that. It's not the like super slick, very attractive Zatanna. It's more of a grounded Zatanna, and it does work for the story because I think this is kind of a younger Zatanna who is a little less sure of herself. She's lacking a little bit in self-confidence. So it kind of makes sense. You almost think of it like this is a 19 or 20-year-old Zatanna who hasn't learned those life experiences yet. And when she does, then you get the super sexy Zatanna that you see in those Adam Hughes covers. At least that's the way it works in my headcanon. So anyway, yeah, this has been a pleasant surprise. When I read the solicit for the first issue, I wasn't sure I would like it, but because I like a Zatanna that's more self-assured and is really kind of on top of things. And this is not that. But that being said, I'm really enjoying what we're getting here in the story. So what are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
I agree with you. I'm happy to report Mariko Tamaki. I wasn't holding up a lot of hope that I would enjoy this series, but this was better than the first issue. I enjoyed this. And despite the fact that it is clearly not in continuity, this issue made me realize that I don't care. I'm enjoying it. I wish she was a little bit sexier too, Zatanna, but there's some images here where there's the sexiness does shine through, and in the first issue as well. So I got actually Javier Rodriguez on the art. I really don't have any issues with it. I think it's really good. I'm really intrigued by this other character whose name, I don't think her name was ever said. There's this other character.
Yes, that's the stranger from the first issue. Yeah. I think she just refers to herself as the stranger. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. But I think she's a cool character, and she wields magic, and she seems to be sort of almost like she doesn't necessarily like Zatanna, but she's almost amused by Zatanna. Zatanna very clearly does have magical powers. In fact, Zatanna even saves this stranger ultimately in confronting one of the demons, but then sort of denies that she used magic. And Zatanna, I got the impression that Zatanna's in a willful state of denial that she clearly has some magical abilities, but for whatever reason, whatever the trauma was that shaped her during the incident that ultimately led this palace of casters to believe that she killed or is responsible for her father Zatanna missing, that's forms part of the central mystery. I really like the art here. There were times where some of the pages I really liked it, and I really liked the differences between the stranger and Zatanna. The stranger seems to be somebody who's completely comfortable as a sorceress, as a magical being, as somebody who embraces and is powerful in magic, and is even drawn that way. Whereas Zatanna seems to be doesn't embrace her power and is in willful denial, and even doesn't even want to embrace it. And I really like the differences in those characterizations, and I love that the interplay between the two of them, that there is almost kind of a resentment between the two, that they don't like each other, and yet clearly they're working. They ultimately end up having to work together, and this stranger takes her to the Palace of Casters, where she meets the celestial leader of the casters. And at the end, ultimately, when this stranger returns Zatanna home to her condo, she meets this new character who we don't know who it is. it tells her that the casters are lying to her, and down the rabbit hole we will go, and that's how the issue ends. So I'm on board here. I'm on board. It's red. It's Black Label, and so it's out of continuity, but it's well done. It's well paced. It's easy to read. Well written. I enjoy the dialogue. Mariko Tamaki's done a good job, and I'm on board. It's good issue.
All right, up next we have Harley Quinn, issue number 42. Tini Howard is the writer. We've got Sweeney Boo on art and colors, Steve Wands on letters. We know that Tini Howard is coming off of Harley Quinn in just a few more issues. And it's not that I'm not excited to see what Elliot Kalin brings to the character. I'm very curious what we're going to see. But it sort of feels like Tini is finally getting her footing on Harley Quinn. She's given us a version that's kind of pretty close to the version that I like. The zaniness and the wackiness is sort of out the window. We're getting a little bit more of an intelligent Harley, a little more of a grounded Harley. And I like that. I like that. Here she's teamed up with Tim Drake. She's trying to break into the ice scraper that Mr. Freeze has erected in the middle of Gotham City, using a fragment of a meteor that's, has some kind of special ability to generate cold. And it's just a lot of fun. Also, this police officer that captured Harley at one point and has been after her for a while and been sort of, for lack of a better term, blackmailing her and trying to get her to gather information on the Bat family. She's become a little bit more of a fleshed out character and a little bit more interesting. So yeah, I really enjoyed this issue for the character progression that we're seeing. It's just unfortunate that this character progression didn't happen sooner. That first arc, that first multiversal arc with Harley, like I think back on it with a little bit of cringe that it dragged on for way too long. It had way too much of the wacky zaniness that I don't care for with Harley. This tone I enjoy a lot more, and I just wish we would have got more of this type of tone with the stories that Tini Howard was telling. But I guess we'll wait and see. Her name was absent from any of the solicits in October, but she's come out in her newsletter and said that she has more DC work coming. So, we know there's a lot more titles to be announced, both in the main universe and the Absolute universe. So maybe she's working on something else that hasn't been announced yet. I would assume that to be the case. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if it means whatever artist she's working with can get ahead, get a few issues in the can. But anyway, be that as it may, Rocky, what'd you think of this?
It's not for me. And I honestly, I don't want to, I feel, let's put it this way. I can't think of anything that I enjoyed reading this. I never got anything out of reading this. The one character that I'm cheering for is the cop that is suspended, because everything the cop did I actually agree with, and yet somehow the cop is the bad person who wants to take in Harley Quinn, the bad guy. And she's a bad person, and she's just straight up. She's crazy, and she's the bad person. For some reason, Tim Drake wants to help out Harley because she wants to take down Freeze, and now she wants to give. I know all of this is silly. I'm supposed to, on the one hand, I have a hard time trying to take aspects of this story seriously while then embrace the absurd as well. I just can't do it. It's just not for me. And you can. If you tell me right now that, well, this and that, and well, this explains that, and I'm being too hard on that, you're right. I admit you're right. I just viscerally don't like reading this. I tried, I couldn't get through half of this. It's just so unbelievably absurd to me. I can't get into it. And to think that this is part of the continuity of the DC universe, it makes me just want to pull what's left of my hair out. There's a reason why I wear a cap. In any event, in fairness, I don't have much to say about it. Other than Sweeney Boo's art is fantastic. She's a great artist. God bless her. This is no sting on her, and it's even no sting on Tini Howard. This is not a story that's for me. The backup was all right, but the main story I'm not into at whatsoever. It's too divergent from the main. This whole thing should just be a red, white, and zany Harley Quinn out of continuity tale. This is not. This is not, and you know, as I said before, probably one of the things that I'll be curious to see if I would love to see an absolute. I want to go on a little bit of a mini rant. I want to see in the absolute DC universe a radically different form of Harley Quinn who's straight up evil and who doesn't necessarily side with Darkseid, but is very, very even more badass than the heroes. That would be awesome. And if they did that, then I would have some redemption because people would finally understand that a far more popular version of Harley Quinn would be one that was badass evil. But I'm an outlier on that. But
yeah, you definitely are. So I'm not the biggest Harley fan or what have you, but I wouldn't use the word evil. Like if she could be a bad guy. Like I don't think.
Very, very, very bad. But inclination toward that. I'm just saying. Like,
yeah. I mean, when I think evil, I think about like the Joker or whatever, and they're doing bad things for the sake of being, of them being bad. Harley's more like she just doesn't want to follow any rules. She just wants to do what she wants to do when she wants to do it. And, technically she's a lawbreaker and she is bad and she, kind of is a villain, but I just don't see her. And I can't put her in the same league with like a Joker or even a Lex Luthor. I don't think she's ever out to purposely hurt anybody. She either doesn't consider her actions that might hurt somebody, or she's doing something because she's selfish and she wants it for herself. Not that she's out and out evil. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I would argue that ever since Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor left, I'm not going to say Harley Quinn's popularity has declined because I think she's at least is more popular than ever, if not more so. But I don't think that anybody has had as good of a handle and consistent characterization for the character of Harley Quinn since Jimmy and Amanda left. I mean, you had Sam Humphries, you had didn't Tim Seeley do a run? Stephanie Phillip, now Tini Howard. It feels like, again, I go back to that Bruno Redondo story with all the different versions. They just don't know what to do with her. And even writers, same writer within their own run. I mean, the Harley that shows up in this issue feels quite a bit different than the Harley at the beginning of Tini's run, where she was much more insane, basically. Much more incoherent. In a way.
I would just add this, that the way that writers are forced to write Harley when she's a member of the Suicide Squad, they can never make Harley go full basic crazy retard. They have to pull her back and give her some semblance of being a badass at times when she's a member of the Suicide Squad. I prefer that version of Harley as opposed to when she's just let loose and she's always just a totally ridiculously dumb blonde who's zany, does stupid things, and happens to fluke off things at the end purely by accident and by forced design. And I just get tired of reading it. At least on Suicide Squad, there seems to be more even crazy verisimilitude, there's that word again, than that I can believe her more as a member of the Suicide Squad than I can when she has her own book. She needs to be canceled, and the best thing they could do is just not have any Harley. Imagine if they, bring in Harley back and then have her still in the mainstream universe. That's a decided mistake. The more I think about it, but I digress.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what Elliot Kalin does. Very curious to find that out. All right, up next we have Nice House by the Sea. James Tynion is the writer. Alvaro Martinez Bueno on art, Jordi Blair on colors, and World Design handles the letters. What'd you think of this?
Well, straight up, this was I love this. Nice House by the Lake was my favorite comic of, I'm going to forget the year, 2021, 2022, whenever it was. It was my comic of the year. It's my comic of the last 3 years, quite frankly. I absolutely love it. So I absolutely have that bias. But because I have that bias, I come into this particular comic with extremely high expectations. And fortunately, they're met here. And the central premise of Nice House on the Lake is that there's an alien named Walter who has chosen basically 12 of his friends. And what these friends don't know is that Walter has chosen them to save them from the end of the world, from Armageddon. And throughout the 12 issues of Nice House on the Lake, the friends come to discover that their cabin that they're in Nice House on the Lake is basically a construct by Walter. And they're there to basically live and be immortal and basically live forever. And they can never leave, but they can get anything they want but they're sort of essentially trapped there. And it's a very complicated story, but yet it's character based, and how these people who are chosen by Walter, how they discover their place and how they have to get along and interact with each other is the central premise. In this the central conceit of Nice House by the Sea is that it was revealed at the end of Nice House on the Lake that there are more than one Walters. There were more than one aliens, different enclaves of aliens, much like Walter, who saved and actually chose members of humanity to save. And there's more than one Nice House. There's a series of houses which were saved by aliens, much like Walter. And in this case, the alien's name is Max. And Max did something different than Walter. Max told the people in advance, years before the Armageddon occurred. Max told all his members. He told them that Armageddon was coming and that he was going to save them. And so this is a very different type of group of people than the group of people that were saved by Walter in Nice House on the Lake. This group of 12 people, ranging from actors, historians, singers, artists, writers, this group of people prepared and knew in advance what was coming. And so it sets up a lot of very, very interesting character dynamics. The questions that you can ask yourself is, okay, well, because these characters knew in advance who was going to be in their group, they knew in advance what was going to happen, is that going to affect the dynamic? Are they going to get along any better? Is this particular group going to be chosen to survive? Because of all the houses, only one house can survive. So all the houses ultimately are going to be competing against each other. So the different group dynamic here is already, from the beginning, already you see fractures in this group dynamic in this opening issue of Nice House by the Sea. That's decidedly different than the fractures that occurred and the bonds that formed in the group with Nice House by the Lake. This is so fascinating. There's so many characters here. We have Oliver, Henry, Jerry, Soko, Victor, Quinn. All these characters, and we're told all these characters have their own symbols, have their own, there's rules of the household. They can control the weather. They control everything, and they're essentially immortal. They can even control their bodies. They can change. They can ask Max, their alien benefactor, to change the shape of their bodies and make them young again, and make them. They can basically do whatever they want within certain limitations, and it poses all kinds of very interesting philosophical questions. And as I said, I'm a sucker for a metaphor. There's so many interesting aspects here, and in particular, the lead character, at least the one in this issue, this Oliver, a 33-year-old actor. It's at one time he had contemplated choosing not even wanted to join this group, and it ends here with Walter from Nice House on the Lake showing up, and Oliver apparently knows some of the people from the other house of Nice House on the Lake, and so there's going to be some overlap here. There's so much that happened. It's too much for me to, in this quick review, to. I just gave the bare Cole's Notes minimum of what Nice House on the Lake is about. It's so much more rich in subtext and story and evolution and pacing and mystery that I so encourage people to read it. I'm still waiting for my hardcover because it's absolutely, I'm still waiting with bated breath for my hardcover of Nice House on the Lake. People, if you have an opportunity to get the trade or the hardcover of Nice House on the Lake, get it. You'll absolutely want to read Nice House by the Sea. And yeah, there's so much more I could say, but it's something that I want people to pick this up and read this. That you'll be much more rewarded if you've read Nice House on the Lake, but this is still accessible in and of itself. And I would also encourage people to read James Tynion's newsletter, where he explains some of the slight differences between the previous House on the Lake and this Nice House by the Sea. Very interesting, and so I'm really curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it as much as you. So first of all, let me say, yeah, Max apparently interesting. Like Walter, clearly a masculine name. Max, short for Maxine, short for Maximilian. Alien, right? So gender probably doesn't matter. But sort of presents as sort of androgynous, but I get a female vibe, so it's kind of interesting. You mentioned Walter, doing something different. It goes farther than that. Tynion has said, it might have been that I read it in his newsletter, it might have been an interview, that Walter broke the rules. Walter took people that he wanted to take. That wasn't what was supposed to happen. In all these houses, these aliens were supposed to bring the best and the brightest. They weren't just supposed to bring their friends. And yes, Oliver was part of the friend group, knew a couple of the people that ended up in Nice House by the lake. You mentioned, did they know ahead of time? They didn't. I remember reading that as well. None of these people, and that's one of the things that Tynion pointed out, it very much will differ. And it makes you wonder if the people that live in the Nice House by the lake, if they have an advantage because they were friends, they didn't know ahead of time. Not that the pressure of the situation didn't cause some conflict or whatever. We saw that in the story, and I agree with Rock. It's a very good story, well worth your time. But I'll talk about why I think it might possibly be better than this at this point. I mean, one issue in, it's almost not fair to compare them. But do they have an advantage because they knew ahead of time, right? We're told, Tynion says that none of these people knew each other ahead of time. They may have known of each other, right? Because one of the people is like this Taylor Swift-like pop star that's won all these awards and whatever. This, Oliver actor who's won, Academy Awards and what have you. But clearly they've heard of them. But none of them, there was no personal relationships. They didn't know each other. And that's going to lead to more conflict because you're sort of thrown into a house with strangers, people that you might not necessarily even choose to be friends with because their personalities rub you the wrong way. And the other thing is, this idea of who these people are without any, feelings or attachments. It's an eclectic mix. You have a priest. He sort of objects. I think you said Max changes the bodies. It's actually, they have a doctor as well. And the doctor, with his medical knowledge, along with the ability that these beings have due to the aliens giving them the ability to wish for things and the following day. So it's a combination. It's not actually, I don't think Max is changing the bodies, making these people younger. It's a combination of the doctor who's had a conversation with Max about this, about how far he's supposed to go. So it's got to be the people wishing to be younger and manifestation, some sort of medical procedure, as well as this kind of almost supernatural like ability to wish for whatever you want that allows them to be younger. And it's sort of weird, right? These people are like, in their late 50s, early 60s, and some of them have the bodies of a 20-year-old. And the Catholic priest, feels that's morally objectionable. But you got to I think you throw out a lot of the social conventions. I mean, the argument can be made whether or not that's morally objectionable in our current reality. Now you're talking about where the world has ended. Dude, a lot of that stuff, kind of goes away. I mean, a lot of the things that you don't do from a perspective of, morally it's wrong. A lot of times it's wrong because it's going to affect and hurt so many other people. That's not the case here. You're only living in this house with 11 other people. They didn't know you ahead of time. What difference does that make? What body you're in? So yeah, kind of interesting. Now the reason that I'll say I prefer Nice House on the Lake to this, it all goes back to this is a story. First of all, it's a fantastic concept, right? Like Nice House on the Lake. When I first started reading it, I was like, oh, this is just a great story. I can't wait to get to the end and see how it all wraps up. And then it doesn't wrap up with a nice, neat bow. Instead, it's part of a larger narrative. Thus, we have this second volume set in, kind of the same universe or what have you, with the same conceits. We're going to see crossover of character, like Rocky said. So certainly Nice House on the Lake, that's not a complete story in a way. Still satisfying, but it doesn't put a period on the end of the sentence. I don't necessarily expect this to either, but regardless of that, these stories, these volumes, I don't think they're best served as single issues. I think they're best served read in a big meaty chunk. Like have it come out like every other month or every 3 months, have it come out quarterly and give me like 3 issues worth of material, or have it take a year and just give me the whole thing as one complete original graphic novel, because it is so rich and there's so much character and there's so much to explore. I won't go so far as to say I'm disappointed to read it, but I'm disappointed when I get to the end and I'm like, oh man, I got to wait another month. It's just these stories and these ideas are so big. I want it all. Yeah, like selfishly, I want it all at once. So I'm sure DC's not going to do that because these things are selling, really, really well, making all kinds of money. So why wouldn't they want to double dip, right? Like you're going to buy it in single issues. It's great. And then you want to buy the trade as well. But I just think this story and all subsequent volumes that are these nice house adjacent stories, they would be best served in a different format as a big graphic novel. But again, I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with the actual quality of this issue. It's just kind of a personal preference for me. I just think it works better that way. Maybe it's a little easier to take the second volume in monthly installments because we have so much more information. I mean, when Nice House on the Lake was coming out, we had no idea, about some of the background ideas, these aliens and whatever, and more is being revealed. Like there's multiple houses and what have you. So I think this one gets a little bit of an advantage because we do know more. And also I'll remind everybody, if you remember, after this first 6 issues of Nice House on the Lake, there was a 2 or 3 month break. So it took, even that much longer. And again, the art from Bueno is Bueno. It's so good. It's just amazing. And so, it's no surprise that he needs to take his time, and I'm all for it. Again, it just goes back to the idea, hey, just give him the time he needs and let him take a year or whatever and have it come out. I mean, look at how long it took. What was the Phil Jimenez? He won the Wonder Woman. Historia. Thank you. I kept thinking Amazonian and I knew that wasn't right. Yeah. Look at how long those took to come out, but it was fantastic and it was worth the wait. I think similar to this, but unfortunately that would make too much sense. It would be logical. It would be in the best service of the story. So yeah, they won't, the bean counters at DC will never let that happen. All right, let's move on. Up next, we have Detective Comics number 1087 from writer Ram V. Art by Christian Duce and Stefano Raphael. Colors by Luis Guerrero. Letters by Ariana Mayer. And as I say that and thinking, okay, there's a backup in this, you mentioned something about the backup in Harley Quinn. And I forgot I wanted to say all the backups in the Harley Quinn book that have been going on, it's always Harley Quinn having a dream. I'm so over that. They're so dumb and unnecessary, and I don't need to be paying. I mean, I'm not buying Harley Quinn because I'm not a Harley Quinn fan, but anybody who's paying an extra $1 for that because that's in there, it's just a ripoff. I'm sorry. Stop. Just stop with the backups. Just stop. I mean, as much as the ones in Wonder Woman are kind of fun, I just would prefer that they just not be in there and charge me, less money. So anyway, what are your thoughts on Detective, Rocky?
Well, it's funny. Rambi is finally bringing this detective story to a close. I don't know. I think there's still I think we have another 2 issues after this. It's going to be 6 parts before this Gotham Nocturne Act 3 Crescendo Part 4 is what it is today. Artists Christian Duce and Stefano Raphael. It's again, things continue to build to a head. We've got Batman fighting this shadow. Is it Shadow Thief or the Shadow Demon, who is this villain that sort of just popped up? That the Orgum family has created this villain out of thin air, right? Or just popped up last issue, and Two-Face is now on their side, and Catwoman's on board. And in this issue, Mr. Freeze freezes the entire city because the cold is a weapon against the asthma. So because the reality engine, the thalamus or the machine, the reality engine, which gets its power to sort of like in the underground Gotham passage, the passageways that are underground, that are under the main streets of Gotham are like neural pathways, and this reality engine sort of channels its energy through the underground of Gotham, but it can be impaired through freezing. And so Batman has Freeze sort of literally use his technology to sort of like make Gotham really, really cold, which impairs the ability of the Asmere which is a mind controlling essence to sort of mind control the Gothamites, citizens of Gotham, while Batman, goes around the city and basically kicks ass. And again, we got Commissioner Montoya ends up involved. There's a lot of moving parts here. And on the one hand, I want to give Ram V some credit for, there's a lot of moving parts, and I think it does flow well. The only thing is, and this has been more your criticism than mine, but for some reason it hit me in this issue where, boy, the fact that this is still going on just really hit me this issue. Fortunately, there's only 2 issues left after this. I just want Batman to, for God's sakes, man, I'm already feeling, just get to the end already so we can resolve this and have the ultimate battle, because very clearly that's where it's heading. I mean, that's really all that's headed here. We got Two-Face shooting silver bullets into the werewolf character whose name I forget, and there's some really cool, really great art here, particularly of Mr. Freeze, shooting his gun, and there's I can't even remember the name of the Orgum characters. That's one of the criticisms I'll have of this series, and I know it's not just me, because I listened to other reviewers as well, and I know you. I don't remember the names of all the members. I still don't know the names of I can't remember the names of all the members of the Orgum family, because there's just too damn many of them, and none of them really stand out. There's the Orgum Queen, and then the rest, frankly, I'm not really sure. I kind of forget. Yeah, this is another one of those things where maybe if you read this from beginning to end in one massive volume as an omnibus over a weekend, this is something where you get more of a reward with it. But having said that, I have enjoyed the narrative. This is a narrative that has, while it's dragged on, it is absolutely rich with almost fairy tale and myth and lore and metaphor and all the stuff that I generally like. This is Ram V at his fullest Ram V-ness. If that's and so he's the author of his own talent here, because the very thing that has made this story compelling to me, it's exhausted me a little bit at this point, but it's still worth a read. And I'm definitely going to be glad when this is over. And I'm looking forward to Tom Taylor's run, who's such a very, very different writer than Ram V. It will be a welcome change to Detective Comics. And that's no insult to Ram V, but it's going to be nice to just, get a different driver with a different vehicle on this title after this series is, after Ram V's run is over. What do you think of the main story?
Yeah. So if you could think about the story overall in tone, what Ram V was going for, he say, he wants to tell this epic gothic Batman tale. Instead of feeling epic, the story from start to finish, it just feels sprawling. That's the word that I would use. It's too big. If it was more focused, you're right. We'd more identify with the characters. We'd understand the villains a little bit more. We'd remember their names. Because they are interesting. There's a lot of interesting ideas here, but it just falls apart in the execution because it's just gone on too long and it's too big. I'd rather we would have just had, okay, here's one arc that focuses on just one character, just one. Like the werewolf, 10 Claw, let's just focus on him. Just tell me a story, 6 issues. Just tell me a story about 10 Claw so I can identify with him, so I can relate to him, so I can remember his goddamn name. And same thing with all these Orgum characters. Instead, it's just been sprawling. It feels like, let's just throw anything against the wall and see what sticks for this particular issue. It doesn't feel like there was an overall plan. It's just like, here's point A at the beginning and here's point Z at the end. And I'm going to somehow get from point A to point Z. And these are the things that I want to have happen along the way, but I'm just going to throw them in wherever. It's felt so haphazard. I couldn't possibly imagine a worse punishment for a Detective Comics fan than to have this in an omnibus and read it over a weekend. Oh my God. I would never want to read this again because it's not enjoyable. It's gone on too long. Yeah. 2-3 years and we can't remember the characters' names. I mean, that says it all right there. But again, like good ideas, it's just falling apart in execution. And completely out of continuity with anything else that's going on, right? Like just totally off on its own thing. The art has been consistent throughout, regardless of which artist has been on there. It has been dark and moody, and I think very much gives you that gothic feeling. But yeah, this just hasn't been for me. And in a way, it's been so big and so sprawling. I'm like, how can he wrap all this up in 2 issues? But you know what? I don't care. As long as it ends, I don't care. And I think the use of the 10-eyed man here is sort of the perfect metaphor for this entire story, right? Like he talks, he's inscrutable. You can't understand what he's saying. You can't understand why Batman gets anything out of what he's saying. And you just can't wait till he's not on the page anymore, so you don't have to read the gobbledygook that's coming out of his mouth. Not so different than the Si Spurrier word salad of science terms that we get sometimes. But that's sort of how I feel about this entire book. Whenever the organs talk, it's similar as well, right? There's nothing I can like point my finger at and go, well, I like this about it, or I like this aspect of the story. There's been a few things here or there, but nothing that's been consistent throughout. Like, for example, in this issue, I love the characterization of Two-Face. I love that this is not a Two-Face that kind of farms everything out to his henchmen. No, he's out there, guns blazing on his own, taking action. More of an old school type Two-Face, where he's getting his hands dirty and he doesn't have hundreds of people working for him. I did like that. I did like that quite a bit. And as far as the backup, it's written by Dan Waters, so expect it to be kind of weird, I guess. It definitely lives up to that. We have Francesco Francavilla on art and colors. Steve Wands handles the letters. And it's basically looking at Nightwing and Cassandra Cain and Azrael, who's actually back in the old school Asbat uniform. It's showing them out and about fighting against the forces of the Shadow Angel, and how Dick Grayson Nightwing doesn't trust Asbats, and how Asbats maybe is not the same character that Dick Grayson assumes he is. He's not going to be out there hurting anybody, whether they be hero or villain. But again, it's not. Is it necessary? No. Is it good Francavilla art? Yeah. Would I rather just not have it in there and pay $1 less? Yeah, 100%. Again, the backup doesn't serve any real purpose, in my opinion. But I don't know. Maybe your thoughts on the backup are different.
Sorry about that. I had to run, and one of my comics was falling over there, thanks to my beautiful daughter. All right. Okay. So, the backup. I love Francovilla's art. I like his style. I don't mind the backup. I thought it was actually kind of comical. I sort of like the idea that Nightwing was sort of pissed off. Nightwing doesn't like being reminded of the Azrael, when Azrael was Batman. That whole arc. I like the fact that it sort of reinforces and it reminds readers that Nightwing did not like Azrael's tenure as Batman, and he had a hard time believing that Azrael was basically on their side against the Organs. But he comes around, and it's sort of comical a little bit that Azrael tells him at the end that I'm an angel of mercy and I'll grant you 3 chances. And since Nightwing already hit him once, and Azrael said he'd give him 3 chances, Nightwing hits him one more time just for the hell of it. And I thought that was comical. Is it a necessary story? No, absolutely not. But it put a smile on my face.
Fair enough. All right. Up next, we have Absolute Power tie-in Green Arrow issue number 14, written by who was it written by? Joshua Williamson, I believe. I thought I had the credits in front of me. I guess not. Amin K. Nahalapan and Sean Isaacs on the line work. Romulo Fajardo Jr. on colors. And let's see if I can find whoever the letterer is. Here we go. Letters by Troy Petrie, actually. So Arrows Against the World. What's interesting, does Green Arrow, I don't think Green Arrow shows up Oliver Queen, I should say, he doesn't show up in this book at all.
Yes.
At all.
That's why I liked it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he shows up in one panel where Batman is basically talking to the Arrow family. We know they're on the island, capital I, and he's basically saying, "Hey, Superman was the first to fall. Now metahumans all around the world, we're all having our power stolen by the Amazos, and those who didn't escape were in prison. It was all coordinated by Amanda Waller. She has help though, Failsafe and Oliver Queen. Like, wait, what? Yeah, Oliver gave her access to all this Justice League database and armories of weapons and what have you. And Batman tells the Arrow family, hey, stay on the island. That's not what they want to hear. And then they try to, Dick Grayson's there as well. He tries to convince them, no, you guys need to stay because if we fail, you'll be the last line of defense. Like, what? If all the superpowered people fail, you think these non-powered people with arrows are going to save the day? Like, you might as well have them out there now. They can be kind of cannon fodder, if you will. But whatever, that wouldn't work for the story. But then, of course, it's Roy Harper, so he doesn't listen anyway. And he says, okay, if it's Amazo robots that are the problem, then we need to go capture Professor Ivo and get him to figure out how to turn off these Amazo robots. So in the meantime, we see Connor Hawke don the garb of Green Arrow again. So he's going to be Green Arrow, which, again, I've talked before during this list. It's whatever. If this is what Oliver Queen's going to do, and you want him replaced, I'm ready for some Connor Hawke Green Arrow stuff. So these guys go out on a mission. Actually, Green Arrow does show. I forgot. There is a scene in the middle where Green Arrow is showing up and talking to some of the other minions of Waller, and they don't. It's clear they don't trust him. But anyway, the rest of them, they go after Professor Ivo. You could argue about the success of them capturing Professor Ivo, if it will even work, if he's going to have any sort of chance to shut down these Amazo robots. We come to learn that Ivo wasn't even aware that Amanda Waller was co-opting his technology and is not really on board with it. So maybe they will help, but before they can capture him, the character that Oliver Queen was arguing with, the one that doesn't trust him, the one that works for Amanda Waller, looks like he's going to be the one that's going to get his hands on Professor Ivo first. So a lot of action in this. Good dialogue too from Williamson, because there's a lot of characters on the page. There's a lot of them bouncing back and forth, banter and what have you. So I liked it. This character, this mechanical character that doesn't trust Oliver Queen, Bright is his name. I'm curious about him. And yeah, I thought this was one of the better issues, but again, very little to know Oliver Queen in the issue. So yeah, it was a little weird. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'd say it's my favorite. Well, I say favorite. It's the best issue so far to the first 14 issues. Again, I'm going to emphasize that's not saying much, because this has been I think this has been a terrible series. I think this has just not been handled very well at all, generally speaking. But Green Arrow, Oliver Queen not being in it, I think is a good thing, because we need more focus on the other people other than Oliver Queen. We have gotten abysmal character development in this series, abysmal, and we got some hints of character movement and getting to know some of the character members of the Green Arrow family. I'm biased. I don't think Green Arrow deserves a family. There shouldn't be a one. It shouldn't be a focus of DC Comics for the character of Green Arrow. The Green Arrow family is at least 3 characters. There's too many members of the Green Arrow family. I would eliminate Red Canary and the 2 female and the Red Arrow and Mia and whatever names. I don't care. There's just too many. You have Cheshire and Liam and Roy Harper. That's all you need. I love those moments of those two together. I love Cheshire sort of trying to be like actually a superhero, which is hilarious. I think that's where the actual focus that's where the true story lies. That's what interests me. You got Cheshire, a member of the Green Arrow family, with Leon and Roy Harper, and then Nightwing. I mean, as if Nightwing in his right mind actually thinks that Roy Harper's going to listen to him. Are you kidding me? In a scenario like this, of course Roy Harper's going to do his own thing. And so that was almost comical. I would almost think that Nightwing and Batman know full well that Roy Harper is not going to listen to them, because really their advice was that didn't feel right at all. It was really, really stupid. I mean, to suggest that, oh no, they got to stay in the background and literally do nothing in case they get the good, because in case they lose. I didn't really buy that, but I liked the moments. And despite my bias against the family concept, I agree with you. Williamson had some good dialogue here. There were some good character moments. And even though I'm not a big fan of the big family again, the arrow cave with these arrow jets, it looks kind of cool. I mean, you know, if you're a Green Arrow fan, I mean, you're just rejoicing in this. Even like Oliver Queen seems a little bit badass. He makes the point of saying to Bright that, you know, one thing, he thinks Waller's made a mistake, that Waller is just going after the weapons. He's not going after the people that are making the weapons. It really looks as if Oliver is on the side of Waller. It really looks that way. And that's what he seems to be. You know, there doesn't really seem to be any hint that he's on the side of the heroes here in any way, unless somehow looking, you know, how does looking for the people that created all these weapons, if that's what Oliver Queen wants to do, is he somehow going to use that to betray Waller at some point? Maybe, maybe not. Your interview with Mark Wade sort of strongly hinted that who's to say Oliver Queen is not going to permanently stay on the darker side of his nature. Who knows? In any event, I like seeing Tomorrow Woman. She was a character I remember from Grant Morrison's classic JLA run. To see Tomorrow Woman show up again, because Professor Ivo was working on her. That's kind of cool to see her again. And so, yeah, this had some cool moments, some cool callbacks. And yeah, this was by far my favorite issue of Green Arrow so far. Finally.
Yeah, what Mark Waid said basically, you know, I intimated is Oliver Queen, you know, trying to double agent or trying to, you know, betray Waller. And he said, well, all I'll say is that it would be pretty hard to fool somebody like Amanda Waller, who has all these mind readers and telepaths and people that can predict the future. It would be really hard to fool her. But maybe Mark Waid is just saying that because, you know, he wants it to be a surprise. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, we have Absolute Power Origins #1. This is the series written by John Ridley that talks about the origin of Amanda Waller. Aletha Martinez on pencils, Norm Ratman on inks, Andrew Dahlhaus on colors, Steve Wands on letters. I'm going to let you go first, Rocky, because we all know what a big Amanda Waller fan I am. I got to go second.
It's funny you should say that, because I was going to say if ever there was a time that I would have think you would want to go first, it would be on reviewing of this particular issue. For those listening, I got sort of a sneak peek of Jace's opinion on this comic earlier, but I'm not going to ruin it. I'll just stick with my opinion. You got it. So I want you to experience Jace's opinion in all its glory, right out of his own mouth as opposed to mine. As for my opinion on this was, you know, I will say it's written by John Ridley and the art by Aletha Martinez. John Ridley is a great writer. He's a really good character writer. His hidden history or the unknown history of the DC universe that he did, I thought was really well done. He's really good at nailing characterization when he brings his A game. And I almost feel like I want to defend him on this, because I think that he just needed, I guess, more space or something. But because I felt this was one-dimensional. I thought I'm not a fan of Amanda Waller, and I was looking forward to reading this because I wanted to know what would drive Amanda Waller from being a government agent, control freak of the Suicide Squad. Suddenly, she goes from that to wanting to destroy and kill off all the heroes on the earth and control them, and eliminate all the superheroes and control all their powers and put herself over and above everyone, including all the leaders of the world and everything else. What could do that? And straight up, this issue I didn't buy it for 1 second. My own headcanon. The stuff that I made up in my head is more believable than this. It would be more believable if she was a schizophrenic. It would be more believable if she suffers from some paranoid delusions than what comes across here. It's not enough. I don't buy it. Now, of course, one of the things that you and I have said in the past, Jace, even though I don't buy it, I choose to accept it because I want to enjoy absolute power. I just get it. This is the way Amanda Waller is. These are her motivations. Okay, I'll accept it because I don't want that to prevent me from enjoying other aspects of absolute power. But if I'm being critical, and that's what we're here to do, is review this comic, Amanda Waller losing members of her family, losing her daughter and her son to essentially, street crime, and then somehow blaming vigilantes for that when it was criminals that killed them, not superheroes, to blame superheroes, and then to orchestrate and to volunteer, her early origins. She volunteers for a local politician and an underdog, and she gets him elected, but then blackmails him so that as he becomes more powerful, she's going to rise in the ranks as this guy does, and she eventually gets appointed to higher and higher positions of power. With ultimately, she's always had this agenda. We're told now that she always had this agenda. That she's always had this agenda, and just think about what her agenda is here. On the basis of losing 2 children, which is absolutely horrible, horrible. By the way, I never felt the loss of her kids. John Ridley is capable, I know John Ridley is capable of bringing out my emotions in his writing, because he's done it before. He failed in this issue. I didn't feel anything for Amanda Waller. I didn't feel the loss of her daughter and her son. How could I not feel that? That's an utter failure. But in fairness, maybe expecting that to come across in just one issue is not appropriate. But I didn't feel Amanda Waller's loss. It just felt that I never felt it. It never felt it. It never resonated. And then that motivation of what it led her to be, I thought at first she was motivated to go into public service and to help and maybe eliminate crime in her neighborhood. But apparently, no, her real agenda was to control all the superheroes on the planet. I don't see the through line between the loss of her kids to the end, to why she wants, and she's had this agenda for presumably 10, 15, 20 years. And she's finally accomplished it in absolute power. What all these little rumblings of her idea that she had, the idea that she had when she was a young, heartbroken, decimated, destroyed, eviscerated mother who's lost 2 of her children. She's always had this agenda that now has culminated in absolute power. I straight up didn't buy it. In my head, I can come up with a better reason, and that's a better reason that would motivate her. I could think of a better way to write this. I can play script doctor, and that's what I need to do in order to make it work. And I'll just leave it at that. I know, as far as the character of Amanda Waller, I neither like her more nor less I did than at the beginning. I'm just disappointed in this at all. I think this was a significant miss. I think this was poorly done, poorly scripted. And frankly, I would have preferred not to have this, because what I did in my own headcanon was better than this. This was really, really disappointing to me. Really disappointing. And I'm disappointed in John Ridley, while at the same time, I want to defend him because they were expecting too much of what he could do here. But this was a huge disappointment for me. I just never bought it. And the cover, the cover too, I have to say, this cover just doesn't, it doesn't work for me either, quite frankly. This whole thing is a really significant miss. And I just want to add that DC has had, for the last 3 years worth of stories, this has been building up. Amanda Waller's been planning this since at least War for Earth 3. And to get to this and to have this explained as her motivation, this is just straight up, it's just so disappointing. It's just so disappointing. And not only that, I'm going to also add in the lack of superhero appearances, of members of the Suicide Squad, that it's literally just Amanda Waller. This was genuinely boring from a storytelling point of view. There could have been better ways to make the point than the way it was done here as well. I was stunned by the lack of creativity in this, straight up. I would have thought if ever there was a time where you need to carefully craft motivation, this was it, and this was a failure for me. And
Man, I couldn't disagree more. I could not possibly disagree more. You want to talk about crafting motivation? That's exactly what this does. Maybe almost to a fault, right? Like I get that you're disappointed, but I sort of had the same thing, right? Like we both had this expectation that this was going to be John Ridley coming in and trying to engender sympathy for Amanda Waller, trying to explain why she does what she does. And even if we can't agree with it, we can understand it, right? We can understand it. Now, I sort of admit that we don't really understand the underlying seed of why she does what she does, because to your credit, you're right. There's a little bit of lack of something, whether it's, truthfulness or believability or what have you. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to say it should have been this or it should have been that. Clearly Ridley pitched and they agreed, okay, this is what the story is going to be. So, like you said, we got to sort of accept what they're giving us here. And that's what I'm prepared to do. So yeah, was it what I expected? No. Am I disappointed that it wasn't what I expected? No. It's something completely different, out of left field. It surprised me. And instead of going that direction with trying to make Amanda Waller more sympathetic, having us readers feel more empathy, instead Ridley surprises me and he goes all the way to the other end of the spectrum and he says, hey, here's Amanda Waller. She's absolutely a piece of human excrement. She could not be more despicable, awful, worth hating, worth despising than any other character in the history of the DC universe. She's more evil at heart than Darkseid himself. She is an absolute fucking piece of shit. Now, do we have a good reason for her being that? No, we really don't, because at the end of the day, it's what you said. She lost a daughter and she lost a son to gang violence, and her husband goes out and tries to take matters into his own hands, and he gets killed, and ultimately they don't even get the life insurance for him because he was killed technically in the commission of a felony, that being attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon. And she looks at Batman, who, he's out there doing and doesn't get in trouble, but she, and so you can understand her resentment and you can understand her anger. So what would you do if you're Amanda Waller? Yes, try to be an activist, try to help, try to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else. And above all, take care of the kids you still have. And that for me was the thing that really was like, man, I was right to absolutely despise her. She doesn't deserve to draw another breath. She's just absolutely one of the most evil, most disgusting, despicable characters ever created in fiction with the way they write her right now. She promises her child, she makes a promise to one of her still living children that she'll quit smoking. Yeah, I got to be here for you. I'm going to quit smoking. And then at the end of the story, after she totally fucks over this guy that she lied to his face and was working all these, hours for his campaign so she can ride his coattails into Washington. What does she do after screwing him? Well, what do people do? What do whores do after they screw somebody? They light up a cigarette. And that's what Amanda Waller does, right? Like, this guy was not, he was a former city councilman and he was no angel and he had done things that he shouldn't have done. And it's why Waller has it in for him. He was taking money from this drug dealer that, was the one that her husband tried to kill. Was his gang was involved in the loss of her two children. Well, this former city councilman that's now running for, it doesn't say, I think he's running for Congress, so probably House of Representatives. She goes, and the reason she goes to him is so later she has the dirt on him and she can go, look, even if you want to drop out of the race, even if you don't want to run, whatever, you have to, and I'm going to make sure you win, because basically he's her puppet. Amanda Waller, again, with the despicable and worthy of being despised nature of her, won't put herself out there on the line. No, she's going to be behind the scenes, pulling strings or whatever. So she's been able to manipulate this guy who's running for office because she has this information on him. And when he wants to drop out and say, no, whatever, I deserve what I get, you can expose me, Waller goes one further and says, no, it's not you I'll go after. It's your wife. Amanda, the whole reason she volunteered for this guy's campaign was so she could cook his books and make it look like this guy's wife, who doesn't know anything, it's intimated, about him taking bribes from these criminals and is completely innocent and just loves and supports her husband. Waller has set it up so that if this guy drops out, Waller's going to release these accounting books and make it look like this completely innocent woman was stealing from campaign funds. So once again, we have Waller saying, what I'm doing is to protect the innocent. What I'm doing is in the best of everyone, while she completely screws over innocent people, whether it's this guy's wife, whether it's her own goddamn children that she's neglecting. She comes home from working these long hours at this campaign, and her kid is getting a C+ in one of the classes. And she's like, you got to do better. You got to do better. Mommy, I need you to help me. I need you to be here. I need you to study. And does Waller care? No. So what the hell, man? You're sad and you're going to give me some bullshit motivation that you're doing this because of the memory of your kids that are dead? What about your kids that are still alive, you piece of shit? Why don't you pay attention to them? Like, oh my God. So yeah, are we lacking a little bit of, again, that actual kernel? What is it? We're told it's the loss of her children, but it doesn't really ring true because she still has kids and she doesn't give a shit about them. She doesn't care about the kids that are still alive. She only cares about the dead ones. Like, I think ultimately at the end of the day, there are people that are just born that have something broken in them that just become absolutely abhorrent human beings. And that's Amanda. That's all I can think. That's what Amanda Waller is. So I didn't necessarily mind this. Is it a departure from any origin we've had of Amanda Waller before? Yeah, it is. But at the end of the day, this is what we're being told. This is what I'm going to buy into. This, in a way, not that I was looking for it, not that I needed it. It's validation. What I've said all along. DC is completely leaning into Amanda Waller as an absolute villain. She's a piece of crap. Don't give her any respect. Don't sympathize with her. Don't give her any benefit of the doubt. Everything she's doing is BS when she's talking about, hey, I'm trying to save innocent people and blah, blah, blah. She only cares about herself. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. She can talk all day long about, hey, I'm doing this to save whatever. No, she just wants revenge for some perceived wrong that superheroes, the concept of superheroes, has done for her. In a way, for all her intelligence and ability and capability and all of that, at the end of the day, she's sort of an idiot for thinking, like you said, that because her kids died, it's the superhero's fault. Like not even that they were able to or not there to save her kids, but that they're able to operate outside the law and actually bring villains to justice. And her husband wasn't able to successfully do that and got himself killed, and then cost her the life insurance that would have made her life and her kid's life easier. If anything, be mad at your husband for being a dumbass with a gun, but you're going to blame superheroes? Yeah, that doesn't really make sense. So all I can think is, yeah, for all your cunning, Amanda, you're just not very smart. First of all, your motivation and your reason behind it doesn't really ring true to me. There's got to be just something broken in you. You crave power. You love to just screw over innocent people. You don't care who gets in your way, because at the end of the day, it's all about you. At the end of the day, it's all about you. So I would say, as despicable and just awful as she is, she's again up there with Darkseid in just the selfishness. Because one more thing, and then I'll be done ranting. We've talked about this before about how if there's something you need, once you accomplish that, then you're good, right? And this was in the story. It was in one of the prologues. I think it was Sarge Steele or Clock King that said, I think maybe it was Clock King that said, yeah, if it's a need, she needs to stop these superheroes. And then once the superheroes are stopped, then she can stop. Like, mission accomplished, she can sit back or whatever. But if it's a want, just human nature, want is never satisfied. And make no mistake, it's not a need. Amanda Waller doesn't need to stop the superheroes. She wants to stop the superheroes. And once she stops them, then it'll just be the next thing that on her list that she needs to have control of. So yeah, I I didn't expect it to be this. I accept it for what it is. I didn't think it was boring. I thought it was eminently readable. Kind of like you, sometimes you want to just, you can't believe what you're reading. You just go, God, this person can't be this horrible. They can't, you know, it's like watching a true crime documentary. They're not really going to do this, are they? And then she does it. Yeah. She's such a piece of crap. Like, I would not, you know, I said when this was coming out, I didn't think it was possible for Ridley to make me feel empathy or relate to Amanda Waller. But if anybody could do it, it was him. I didn't think it was possible for me to hate Amanda Waller anymore. But God damn it, John Ridley did it. Congrats, Ridley. Great job. You leveled up my hate of Amanda Waller. I did not think it was possible. Good job.
Yeah, this is how I have to read. In order for me to appreciate this story more, this is what I read into the story to make it a little bit more believable for me. That is, I think that in order to make this work for me, that when her husband and her 2 children died, a part of her died inside as well. Died so much, there was such an internal death that it affected the way, perhaps even how she treated her kids that were still alive. And while she was doing what she thought she needed to do by going into public service and helping someone out, she, in my view, this is my headcanon, that she realized that she had access to information and power, and she slowly used that, and she slowly began to understand how much power she had to manipulate. And there was a certain threshold in her mind that when that politician, you know, she realized she had the power to get him elected, and she began to embrace her own power. And then while I choose to think that maybe initially her motivation was sound, something snapped, and she became just power hungry. And in the story that is told here, I needed a little bit more of that substance to make it believable to me, but I'll accept it. I'll accept it. You know what I mean? I get it. It was all there. She was always a power hungry bitch. But here's the thing, and this is a criticism. If her husband had never been killed, am I to believe that there'd never be an Amanda Waller? That she would never have done this? Because I think that Amanda Waller, this level of evil that she's become, I wonder if even if her husband hadn't died or her kids hadn't died, was it inevitable that this Amanda Waller would become the bitch that she did? That's the question I have. What's the point of killing the husband and the 2 kids if that did in some way impact her behavior? And that's where I'm having a hard time drawing those connections to. But
it just would have been another catalyst. If it wasn't her husband being killed. And that snap that you're talking about, that snapping sound, that's her being pooped out of Darkseid's ass. That's the snap that you hear. Because maybe that's what at the end of Absolute Power we'll find out. She was never human. She's like some offshoot of Darkseid or whatever. Hey, Stranger Things, you know, supposedly there's some secret that Darkseid, you know, we've been told some secret that he realizes. He realizes, hey, there's this shard of me. After I had some really bad Thai food one night, there's some piece of me that I accidentally pooped out my ass. And so he's going to realize that, and he's going to go and he's going to get Amanda and reabsorb her, because that was always a part of him, and he'll be even more despicable. And that's how he levels up, right? We're told Darkseid levels up. Yeah. So there you go. Darkseid absorbs Amanda Waller, who was always a part of him. Just, you know, after a bad night of Thai food, he accidentally pooped her out.
I think it would take him. It would probably take 2. I think Amanda Waller's big enough. It would probably take 2 meals. Darkseid would have to take 2 meals to eat her.
She's nowhere near as big as she used to be. But okay, you know, I'm being sort of facetious here. But you know, forget about the pooping her and the bad Thai food or whatever. But what if something I'm saying actually rings true? There's a piece of Darkseid that's been missing, that somehow got tied up with Amanda Waller at a young age or something.
That's a good point.
And the way he levels up is by reabsorbing her or whatever. Or it turns out that Darkseid's been playing the long game for a long time, and he infected her with something. Stranger things again, but hope you guys all enjoyed. I know I got pretty fired up there, but I did not expect that I could hate Amanda Waller more. But man, the fact that she lied to her kid, you know, and she doesn't even hesitate to light up that cigarette. Just what a despicable human being. Just awful.
Huh.
We should mention the art. The art by Aletha Martinez is really, really good as well. Okay, moving on. Settling down. Batman: Brave and the Bold, issue 15. We've got 4 stories: Nightwing and Deadman Down the Road, Part 3, which is the next to last part of the story. Tim Seeley's the writer, Kelly Jones on art, Michelle Madsen on colors, and Rob Lee on letters. Time Jerks, Part 3, final part of the story. Mark Russell writing, John McKell on art, Mike Spicer on colors, Farron Delgado handles the letters. Duality, Part 1, Alex Segura is the writer, Andy McDonald on art, Patricio Del Pesce on colors, and Lucas Catoni on letters. And then the last part of The Invader, Part 3, Joshua Hale Fikolov handles the writing, Lissandro Esterin on art, Patricio Del Pesce on colors, and Becca Carey on letters. I'm not going to have a whole lot to say about the first story. It's okay. I talked before about how I'm not a big fan of Kelly Jones' art. I like the interplay between Nightwing and Deadman, but yeah, for me, the Kelly Jones art wouldn't go so far as to say it's off-putting, but it also doesn't draw me in. So I'm sort of just going through the motions of reading this, and not really getting that much out of it, to be honest. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the first story, Rocky?
I really love the art. There's a kind of a crazy, eclectic horror element, yet pseudo crazy sexual element to the way that he draws this. One of the characters in this story, this sexy red bikini with these leggings. It's like pretty sexy. I thought the character is pretty good. I love his rendition of Deadman. I think it's the art. The art makes it. And Celia on the story, again, it's it was okay. I didn't. I sort of like just I skim read it. I actually spent more time just staring at this one particular page where this sexy, gorgeous looking, scantily clad woman has Dick Grayson around the neck, and but beyond that, I really don't have much to say. It's a very, very long story. It's 27 pages long. This is the 3rd chapter. This is going to be 4 chapters, 27 pages. This is almost like 100-page. This is something that probably at some point should get its own graphic novel. Because the graphic novel will be 96 pages, but by the time this story is done, and for Deadman fans and Nightwing fans, and these are characters that have something in common. In particular, Haley's Circuit and the Hill Circus, which is where Boston Brand was. It's probably worth picking up. And it's also worth noting that Deadman is in the pages of Tom Taylor's Nightwing right now. And for those that maybe this is not related to that, but for those that want to understand perhaps more of the connections between Nightwing and Deadman, this might be a good side read to the current Nightwing one where Dick Grayson is in Nanda Parbat, getting further counseling from Boston Brand in the pages of Nightwing. So it'd be worth checking out that as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the second story, the Booster Gold Jurassic League story, it continues to be really fun. Mark Russell does a fantastic job. We are introduced, I guess, speculator alert, first appearance of Bugster Gold, because we know in the last issue that Booster went away in the future, and humanity's extinct, and the insects have actually taken over. So you've got Bugster Gold and his little flying sidekick. Instead of being Skeets, it's Skeeter, as in a mosquito. And yeah, it's tongue in cheek, and Booster eventually, with the help of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, does save the day. But yeah, it's this idea of Booster as kind of a bumbling idiot saves the day despite himself, which I'm not always the biggest fan of that characterization of Booster. I think sometimes people go a little too far in trying to be humorous, because I think Booster doesn't quite get the respect he deserves. But this is a fun story. The art is perfectly suited. It's fun to see the Jurassic League again. I imagine that in a way this was an excuse for DC to do something with the Jurassic League again. So yeah, it was entertaining. What are your thoughts?
Like I say, it was comical. It sort of has. If I read this story correctly, it sort of has a tragic end for the Jurassic League. I think they were
Yeah,
wiped from existence, so it was
yeah,
kind of gloomy in that respect. But I mean, thank God it's only. Well, I guess it's a comedy. I mean, you could take read out of it what you will, but it was see Bugster Gold. It was kind of comical, and how Bugster Gold made. I mean, it doesn't matter. Booster Gold can be any species, and he's just as much a bumbling idiot, whether he's an insect or a Homo sapien. So, in that respect, that probably doesn't surprise anybody. But it was a fun read.
yeah. The question story, or really, I guess I should say Renee Montoya's story, because it really focuses on Montoya until we get to the end, and she dons her question garb. I just love this. Alex Segura, he's a novelist. He writes. He's written some true crime, crime noir, I should say, type stuff. But he's done some comic work as well. And I just love this. Right, like it pulled so much from what was done with Montoya in the Blue Wall, Gotham City PD Blue Wall series that we got recently. This references that, references the struggle she's going with after losing her brother and her brother's fiance. And now there's somebody that apparently may know her secret identity, because he calls her on the phone at one point, um, and he mentions one of the things, and it's even excuse me, it's even in bold text when he's talking to her on the phone. He says, "I'm an old friend, Renee, someone who knows you, and the questions is in bold, you ask very, very well." Now, whoever this is has been going out there and hurting people that Renee knows, cops on the force, her Alcoholics Anonymous sponsor. Um, so she's going to be out there trying to solve this, um, but she's going to be doing it without the resources of the Gotham City PD, and without um, involving them, because she doesn't want it to get out that she's going to these AA meetings. Now that she's commissioner, she feels like the public at large would kind of persecute her and see it as weakness. It's already bad enough that she's a woman in a place of power in Gotham City. So just so many subtexts of layering of storytelling in this. I thought the art was fantastic. There's not a whole heck of a lot of action. It's a lot of setup, but it's setup that's done really, really well, that pulls you in and very intriguing. So I can't wait for more of the story. It was far and away my favorite story in the issue, like without question. No pun intended, without question.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on it?
I agree with you. It's definitely the best story, but I think part of it has to do that you and I both loved the Blue Wall, that series. In fact, this reads like it could be a second chapter. I think the Blue Wall was that 6 issues long? I think it was 6 issues long, that series. But this could be like an issue 7 continuing on, because I think it was John Ridley wrote the Blue Wall. Did he not? John Ridley,
Yes.
or was
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but this feels like it could fit right into there. I mean, Renee Montoya has gone through so much as commissioner. She's been put through the ringer, even more than Jim Gordon. The worst that happened to Jim Gordon was that his wife left him and his son became a psychopath. Jim Gordon couldn't control his son becoming a psychopath. That, I think, is more genetic, and people get divorced all the time. But Commissioner Montoya, my God, she had her brother killed and his fiance killed. She was discriminated
Goldfish
against.
died.
Yeah. What's that?
Or goldfish died.
Her goldfish died, yeah. The only thing she has left to remember her brother is the dog that her brother gave him. And now her other people, friends on the force, are being killed, are being attacked, and her AA sponsor. I mean, she's really been put through the ringer here, and it almost made me feel that maybe, enough with the piling on this with Renee Montoya already. If anybody should break, you think it would be her. I mean, if Amanda Waller can turn into a psychopath just from the loss of, I mean, Renee Montoya's got the next big event is going to be the big villain's going to be the question. But in any event, I thought, yeah, it was an excellent story. I wish it had its own. I wish the Blue Wall was sold more, that we could have had this as a continuing story, because frankly, I don't collect Batman Brave and the Bold, because it's an anthology, and for a number of different reasons, I just don't I don't buy the physical copies of it, because I don't believe in I'm not a big fan of anthologies, but I have to admit that this is a really good story. And then frankly, I'm hoping at some point in the future maybe this will be collected in a trade paperback that collects stories of the Question, because it's funny, it's only you and I appreciate Renee Montoya so much more because we've read so much. She's got so much history, and she's one of the more interesting characters of the DC universe that most readers of DC don't even know about because they don't read the stories that she's in, and that's just an unfortunate byproduct of the current comic book industry and low sales on some of the lesser known titles.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because here she is. She's still the commissioner, clearly in this issue, but we know over in Chip Zdarsky's and in Detective Comics, she's still the commissioner. But over in Chip Zdarsky's Batman, Vandal Savage is the commissioner. So don't try to make sense of it; you'll just hurt your head.
Yeah.
Okay, final story. For being kind of this weird, creepy alien story that's supposed to probably be a little bit spooky, it ends up being humorous, which I think it should, because at the end of the day, it's a story about Batman and Guy Gardner interacting, and those guys they can't help but just poke at each other. So ultimately, the alien plot thread of this alien that comes to Earth, and he's actually being hurt. He's being harmed by the background radiation of the Earth, and inadvertently putting out radiation of his own that's harmed people, including Batman. When Batman realizes that, he asks Guy Gardner to put a little shield around this little alien guy, and it does two things. It both protects the alien from the background radiation on Earth, and it protects Guy Gardner and Batman from the radiation that the alien's putting off. And they're able to get the alien back to his ship, help him make repairs, and the alien flies off on his merry way, all along with Batman and Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, poking fun at each other. So it was a fun story for a quick 3-parter. I don't think it's particularly memorable, but there was nothing wrong with it. It's well put together. The art from Lissandro Esterin is super creepy, which sort of suits the tone of the story. I think this might have been better suited for like a Halloween anthology, if I'm being honest, though. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, my one comment about it is I will give Joshua Hale Falkov, the writer, some credit here, as well as the artist Lissandro Esterin, for drawing the alien to make the aliens look like the Roswell, New Mexico aliens. And, Falkov does a good job of actually giving the characteristics of the alien in this story is actually characteristics based upon our real world conspiracy theories. I know this because I love conspiracy theories, and I know a lot about the conspiracy theories and the theories surrounding that the powers that the aliens that may have landed at Roswell, New Mexico, that the power set that they may have had. And it's very similar, and about how they just communicate. They don't communicate to talk. It's just purely telepathically, and that's sort of like referenced here within the story as almost a way of explaining that within the DC universe, of course, the DC universe has got hundreds of thousands of different aliens. Alien life is not a big deal in the DC universe, but in our real world, it's kind of a big deal, and we just theorize about the existence of aliens, and to explain why the Roswell, New Mexican aliens in this story, at least the way I see it, they could actually exist in the DC universe, and they're special even in the DC universe because of their unique characteristics. So I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, up next we have Absolute Power Task Force 7, issue number 2, written by John Layman, of all people. We were a little surprised when we did our solicit episode that Layman was coming back to write superheroes, specifically at DC. Here's a little bit of a sneak preview of what the tone of that might be. Art by Max Rayner, colors by Luis Guerrero, letters by Dave Sharp. Give us your thoughts on this, Rocky.
Well, fortunately, this is substantially better than Task Force 7 issue 1. Issue 1 I thought was terrible. It was a story that actually began in the pages of Wonder Woman that came out a week after, but this one is just this one we got to meet another Amazon robot. This one is Depth Charge is his name, and he's sort of the one with the Aquaman-like powers, and his basically assignment from Amanda Waller is to essentially apprehend Aquaman, surprise, surprise, and to essentially befriend and sort of take over and control Atlantis. And I gotta say, I want to give a compliment here because I was extremely hard on the first issue, but I will say this is so much better. Not only is the art better, but the pacing and the story is better, but it actually is making me more interested in it. It does appear as if maybe each of these Amazo robots really do have their own unique personalities, and they're different from each other, and they might end up ultimately having their own agency, their own free will, moving forward. It's very, very interesting. I also like the fact of just the eclectic use of different characters who I would never have thought. Doom Patrol shows up. We got Robot Man, Negative Man. We got Beast Girl and Rita Farr showing up. They wake up because they've been taken out because they accidentally stumble upon this depth charge who's capable of stealing powers. He steals Rita Farr's powers, and he ultimately ends up stealing he has Beast Girl's powers and Robot Man's powers, and he steals them all, and they follow him. Ultimately, they take with them the other I'm blanking on his name, Aquaman's sidekick there, former side.
It's Tempest, right?
Yeah, Tempest. Thank you. They end up going to Atlantis, and only to discover that ultimately they essentially rescue Aquaman, but Jackson Hyde gets taken out, and Depth Charge.
Don't sell it short. They save Aquaman from drowning. Yeah. Aquaman is going to die from drowning because he doesn't have, and he's like, really, right. I'm going to drown. His powers have been stolen. He can't breathe underwater. Of all the ways for Aquaman to die, I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, that was good. It was good, and that's another reason why the comic is just it had those types of moments that were really well, and also the fact that Depth Charge himself underestimated what would happen if he absorbed all the powers, as Beast Girl describes. Beast Girl has some in the combination of Beast Girl's sort of empathy, telepathic powers with Aquaman's. Unfortunately, it affected Depth Charge's sort of reasoning and his programming, such that he became more aggressive than was required. And instead of sort of pacifying and arguably trying to get Atlantis on his side, he ended up destroying and going at war with much of Atlantis, much to Amanda Waller's chagrin. And so, but it was done in a believable way, because it also showed Amanda Waller's flaws here. This Amanda Waller, she's not perfect in her. Everything is not going exactly as Amanda Waller wants it. There are cracks in the armor through what these Amazo robots are doing. There are cracks in the armors that are beginning to show. And even with the escape of Aquaman at the end here, you can see already the beginnings of the cracks of how these cracks might lead to the heroes coming back to defeat Waller. Because as powerful as Amanda Waller is through these stories that will be told in Task Force 7, you can see why, you can see where, okay, I'm beginning to see now that as powerful as all these Amazo robots are, when you have that much power, it's one of the things that Amanda Waller is going to discover, I suspect, is because Amanda Waller is a control freak. But you can the more power you're trying to control, the more difficult it is. And that's what Amanda Waller is discovering here. And whether she likes it or not, and she's already starting to see that. And I just thought this was very well done. And I really like the developments of what's happening with Steve Trevor as well in the backup. But before we get to that, what did you think of the main story?
Yeah, I mean, I really loved it, right? One of the things that we haven't liked the first couple times these Amazo robots have shown up, like one of them was speaking in Old English, another one was like clicking all the time when it was speaking. We actually got one that sort of spoke in like a normal voice and sort of had a normal personality. I still contend that they would be better if they didn't speak at all and just be more menacing. But I did appreciate that. And I appreciated the little things that John Layman did, like, Aquaman possibly dying from drowning. I thought that was really interesting. you mentioned the believability of this Amazo robot losing control, but you didn't talk about, and you talked about it, the combination of Aquaman's powers and Beast Girl's powers, but specifically, so he uses Aquaman's powers to gather this army of sharks. But because of him having Beast Girl's powers, he sort of can feel the emotions of the sharks, and the sharks can feel his emotions. So that's the reason that he loses control, right? Like he's got all these the menace and the sense of wanting to attack and go to war, all the aggressiveness of these sharks, the primal aggressiveness that sharks possess. He's got all that in his head, so he's unable to control himself. And when he goes to pacify the Atlanteans, he doesn't do it in the way that Amanda Waller would want, so that Atlantis could be a tool for them. Instead, he kind of decimates them, and she's like, well, let me make the best of it. At least Atlantis is sort of off the table. We don't have to worry about them being a threat, but not exactly like you said how she would have drawn it up. So I thought the art was fantastic. I thought it was very well done. The way depth charge looked, again, the best Amazo villain we've seen so far. Love the choices that Layman made here with, okay, whose powers are we going to get? Because it allows a really menacing and threatening depth charge, because he's gigantic, because he has Elastigirl's powers, but he's also got the energy beams he can fire from Negative Man, but he's also able to communicate with sharks. He's also able to control them even more than Aquaman would because of Beast Girl's powers. But again, a great combination of powers, but interesting what comes about, interesting the consequences of mixing those powers. Not something that would ever happen to the, Aquaman or Beast Girl, because they don't have, each other's powers. So yeah, really interesting. The art is fantastic. Far and away, probably the best absolute power issue or tie-in or whatever that we've had since maybe Absolute Power 1. Really, really good. And, the fact that Aquaman escaped, not that he wanted to leave, but again, what is he going to do? He can't even breathe underwater. And Waller's worried about that as well. So I am curious. I hope that Aquaman has a role. I mean, we've talked before about how he's sort of made fun of or whatever. And there's this perception, and I think it kind of proves the point that, okay, if you take away Superman's powers, Batman doesn't have powers, you take away Wonder Woman's powers, there's a sense that those characters are still formidable, right? They can still get things done. But I think there's a sense that if you take away Aquaman's powers, man, he, might as well go sit over there in the corner, Arthur, and we'll let you know when your powers are restored. Like, there's just not the same sense that he's like as capable. But at the end of the day, I mean, he still should be a pretty strong guy. His body is made to, withstand the ocean depths. So, he's got good muscle mass and he's a pretty strong guy. But yeah, he can't breathe underwater, can't communicate with fish or whatever. He's not he doesn't have super strength. He doesn't have invulnerability or whatever. So yeah, we'll see what comes of that. It's going to be interesting.
I will say, as an interesting side note, that I would have thought that, Aquaman is part human, part Atlantean, so I would have thought that you can't take away his powers. That's part of his biological mindset. It'd be like saying, if you can take away, I mean, part of his biology is that he can breathe underwater. So if you can take away something that is part of his biology, then you should be able to take away Batman's muscle memory and his ability to fight. Arguably, I mean, you know what I mean. It just seems odd to me.
Yeah, I see your point, but at the same time, it's like, it's the same thing with the magic users, right? Like a lot of what Constantine does, he's learned spells from books. That's not something you should be able to take away, but they can.
I suppose.
Don't look at it too close. It will
exactly.
It won't make sense, and it will hurt your brain. And then there's a little bit of, I don't know if it's a backup because.
I guess it isn't. Sorry, I just assumed it was, but it wasn't. Not a lot happens between.
Because they say, we get a little teaser that says the Aquaman story to be continued in Absolute Power #2, but then we've got this scene with Sarge Steele and Steve Trevor where basically Trevor runs his mouth a little bit too much, and Sarge Steele shows his true colors. One thing I want to point out: so his name is Sarge. That's not a rank. So people go, oh, well, isn't Steve Trevor a higher rank? Like, why is Sarge Steele giving him, Sergeant Steele giving him orders or whatever? No, it's not a rank. That's just his name. He's not in the military. But yeah, Trevor, he could have been a mole inside the organization, but instead he kind of betrays his true feelings, and Sarge Steele backhands him and then calls security to come and lock Steve Trevor up. So, I mean, the whole reason that they recruited Trevor or requested him to be there is because they wanted to keep an eye on him. And then Sarge Steele takes him down to it's like a scene out of Office Space, right? Where Milton gets they move his desk down to the basement or whatever. Basically, they're Miltoning Steve Trevor here and giving him a desk in a crappy ass mop closet. And when Trevor mouths off one too many times, Sarge Steele backhands him and goes, "Yeah, we're not even gonna try to pretend that we're not the bad guys. We're just gonna lock you up." So,
well, they put a bug on him. Sarge planted a bug on him to obviously, I think, set him up so that they could justify.
Yeah, it was in his phone that was in his office.
Yeah. But yeah. So I don't know. To me, Steve Trevor is kind of a boring character. I'm hoping that the reason why they're including him in these backups is that he does something. Ultimately, he does something significant, because otherwise, I don't see why they would have him at all. And I'm kind of glad, because Steve Trevor, I wish they would do more with him, because I think he's a cool character who is notoriously underutilized. So I hope they give him some agency and some more exciting role to play in Task Force X or Task Force 7. If they can make Amanda Waller the villain, I'm sure hopefully they can make Steve Trevor interesting.
Yeah. I'm fine with him being there, even if he doesn't end up having a big role, just because I think there's more to come for him in the pages of Wonder Woman. So we'll see. But man, just a great job from John Layman.
Yeah, really good.
Reading this gives me hope for what's to come. I can't even remember what title is he on. I can't even remember. Do you remember what title he's on? Maybe I can look it up.
John Layman. I'm drawing a blank. I think we just reviewed one a couple weeks ago, didn't we?
He's on Titans.
With Pete, there you go.
With Pete Woods. Yeah, with Pete Woods, starting in October. So right. Yeah.
Well, this is a good sign. This is a good sign.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. All right, last book we're going to talk about in detail. Probably won't talk about it too long, because it's Flash number 11 from writer Si Spurrier, art by Ramon Perez, colors by Matt Herms, letters by Hassan Otsman El-Hal. I've lost track of how many different artists have been on this book. Anyway, what did you think of this? Dare I ask? And I should, before you give us your thoughts on this issue, I should mention, as I often do, every time a new issue comes out, I go to Comic Book Roundup and I look at the reviews, because I'm curious. And it usually will include by that time, the reviews from the previous issue back to issue 1. So when I went and looked on, I think it was Saturday, maybe it was Sunday. I went and looked in the issue 1 through 10. Yeah. Just the trend continues, started out at 8, or it might even been 9 something. Now it's down. I think issue 10 got a 7.0. So it continues to drop issue after issue after issue. And that's an amalgamation of both reader ratings and critical reviews from reviewers. So anyway, give us your thoughts.
Well, first I'll tell you how I'll try to summarize what was conveyed in this issue in a very convoluted way. I will say that out of all this is issue 11. There's been a lot. There is some clarity. There's more clarity in this issue than in previous issues. That's not saying a lot, but I will say this, that if I was to try to speak in as eloquent terms as I can, essentially the Speed Force, it's not just that something's wrong with it. Let's be more elegant. Si Spurrier is saying that the Speed Force is almost divine. There's a divinity to the Speed Force, and the Speed Force chose its conduits. Very special, like Barry and Wally West. They were chosen. And the aspects of the Speed Force, multiversal beings called the Stillness, could access the Speed Force, and they got really, really tired of being immortal. And they're so tired of being immortal, they want to die. And they asked other multiversal beings called the Archangels to kill them, because they want to be, Archangels are capable of finally killing the stillness to put them out of their misery, because the stillness is so bored. And so the Archangels, in order to do that, saw an opportunity not just to kill the stillness, but to utilize the stillness and also to manipulate the rogues galleries of the Flash to make the Flash family believe that they were responsible, that there was something wrong with the Speed Force. And the Archangels ultimately would not only destroy the stillness, but they would betray the rogues, because they're just using the rogues gallery, and also ultimately, I think, kill Barry and kill Wally and manipulate the Flash and ultimately destroy the Speed Force itself. And one of the things that's preventing that, it's revealed that the Speed Force actually loves. It's very. Si Spurrier is really getting. There's a divine aspect to this. That he's bestowing some divinity on the Speed Force, that they love the Flashes, and that there's this symbiotic relationship, that the Speed Force doesn't need the Flashes, the Speed Force doesn't need its conduits, it loves its conduits. It's suggested that there's an ultra powerful bond there, and perhaps one can read into that's maybe one of the reasons why, because there's an emotional component to the Speed Force, powered by, suggesting that there's a relational aspect there. Maybe that's why Wally always centers himself by thinking about what he loves. When he thinks about Linda, he can always find himself when lost in the Speed Force. Maybe that's because when he thinks about that which he loves, love has a power within the Speed Force. And so if it sounds like I'm being a little bit out there and I'm philosophical, I'm reading too much into this, Si Spurrier kind of gets into that a little bit here too. And in the meantime, now, he's thrown in the Crown of Thrones, and I'm not really sure what they do, but the Crown of Thrones have their own agenda to try to utilize what the Archangels are doing. And then there's also Wade West, who is both a young boy and his older adult version is there as well, who's a time cop. And Flashes from different time periods are aware of this sort of crisis with the stillness and the Archangels. And this is leading to some ultimate showdown. And I'll be honest, I don't really know. I can't tell you exactly what is happening on every page. I will say this. The last 3 pages, I challenge anybody to tell me what the hell happened. I have no idea. I have no idea that somehow they got Barry, Wally, whose mind is being manipulated. They got the stillness to lure Barry, and then the Archangels finally killed the stillness because they've earned their reward of a good death. And then Wally's been pulled into something, and I don't know why Linda is crying. She's crying, and I don't know why. The other Flashes look concerned, and I'm not really sure why. And I'm not sure what Wade is doing, Wade West. I'm not really sure why. So I don't know visually, and this is the problem of this series, is that Si Spurrier is dealing with these concepts that, frankly, are impossible to artistically render. And I realize it might be challenging, but that's the challenge you have when you write a science fiction-based story, of which this is, and you combine it with arguably esoteric and metaphysical elements, of which clearly the Speed Force is a combination of both science and comic book fiction and science and all that jazz. It did not work for me, although at the same time, because I'm a sucker for a good metaphor, I could kind of see there is an attempt at trying to be poetic about the relationship between the Speed Force and its need for conduits that I could appreciate. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, it just doesn't work. And I don't ever want to read these 11 issues again. And I just want this to be over with so we can move on. And my biggest heartache here is that there's nothing more disappointing than knowing that the key first appearance of Wade West is going to be in a story arc that most people won't know what happened even after reading it. So there you go.
Well, I mean, technically, Wade his birth was in Jeremy Adams' last issue, technically.
Well, okay, no, fair enough. I just meant like the first appearance of the Pilgrim, his older self, which I
That's
think is an interesting. It's an interesting character, the Pilgrim. It's just that for his first appearance to be in an arc like this, that is convoluted. I don't think serves the character well.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, this issue does explain everything that's happened in the first 10 issues. Now, this issue in and of itself is sort of confusing, but at the same time, the first 10 issues are confusing. So, as much as you don't want to reread it, I think the more times you read this, the better you'll understand it. At the end of the day, there is no Speed Force, according to Si Spurrier, which, you're kind of, in a way, disrespecting a lot of stories that have come before and the writers who've written those stories. Apparently, Speed Force is just a manifestation of time, and the Archangels want to kill time, right? Because then they themselves will no longer, they're looking for a way to commit suicide because they're bored. Then you have these other cosmic entities who want to kill time because time is what leads to change, and change is ultimately chaos. So, it makes sense. Much like the aforementioned Amanda Waller story, we don't have motivation beyond that. Okay, but why does chaos bother you? Why are you bored? Like we don't know. We're just told archangels are bored, and these other cosmic entities want to have
Yeah.
a ordered universe, and an ordered universe means no time. And because the Speed Force is apparently just time, then that means that ultimately you're going to be killing the speedsters that have a connection to that Speed Force as well. So, okay, interesting. It goes a little beyond, what we have sort of tongue in cheek complained about from the beginning of this, which is, oh, hey, Si Spurrier, something wrong with the Speed Force. What an original idea for a story. Not at all. So yeah, at least he is giving us something new here. Does it work? Maybe it could, if the story hadn't been so obtuse. I think it could have been explained a little bit better. And I think you got to get to the point of the Speed Force being time quicker than issue 11. That's just too long to ask people to be along for the ride, which is why the reviews have been steadily dropping and sales as well. For issues 1 through 10. As far as why Linda's crying, well, Linda's crying because, once they realize that Wally's out there, she does, what she's always done when Wally's sort of trapped in the Speed Force, and again, we know it's not actually the Speed Force, it's time or whatever, but to their understanding, as they're talking through it, they think Wally's trapped in the Speed Force. And every other time Wally's been trapped in the Speed Force, when Linda remembers, because again, there was a time where Wally was not in the DCU between New 52 and Rebirth. But Linda was able to call him because we've always been told Linda's his anchor, right? She's always been able to call out to him, and he comes, he shows up. With the exception of Rebirth, where it was Barry Allen that called him. But either way, she's always been able to call him, and he shows up. And so she's crying because she calls him. She calls him. Her eyes turn all white, kind of weird. She calls Wally, and for the first time, when she calls him, he doesn't show up. And that's devastating to her, which you can understand. They've always had that connection. She's always his anchor to reality, that no matter where he is, that she's able to call, and he comes back. He finds his way back to her from the Speed Force or wherever he is. But now he's out there running faster than light. He's about to breach the source wall and all sorts of craziness. So
why do you think her eyes turned white? Do you think she has powers or something?
I don't know. I think it's just poor art, to be honest, because I mean, she had super speed powers when Wade was inside her, and that made sense. So maybe it's some kind of lingering whatever, or maybe it's just manifestation. But at the end of the day, I think they're just trying to show impact, and I think it's a poor artistic choice. And I don't blame Javier Fernandez. Javier Fernandez, is that who does the art? Because I'm sure that Si Spurrier put it in the Ramon Perez. Sorry,
Ramon Perez.
Yeah. It was probably in the panel description. She's staring, but she doesn't have any eyes. I don't know. Maybe it's tongue in cheek, right? It's Linda. It's not Iris. No Iris. Not Iris West. No Iris. Give her white
Yeah,
eyes with no iris, no pupil, whatever. I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know why. It's weird. It's weird. But
That was a
the
bad joke. That was
yeah,
good.
it
No
was
Iris.
terrible. It was terrible. 100%. But the point remains that the reason she's crying is because she calls Wally, and for the first time ever, he doesn't come. So um, I do think there's value to this issue because it does explain so much of what comes before. But goddamn, if you don't have to just work so hard to understand what Si Spurrier is doing here, and
No.
again, like dragging on too long,
Yeah.
this there's still a couple issues to go to resolve this. And my contention is going to be at the end. Much like you, I'm never, or no, actually, probably one more issue, right? Because this is issue 11. So it's
Yeah.
probably going to wrap up in issue 12. And it's most likely going to be a situation where you could have done the story in 6 issues and been a little more focused and not had so much sciencey word salad and told the same story. And it probably would have been better. And you also likely wouldn't have had so many different artists on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it would have been better. But
I want to give a shout out. I want to give a shout out to Mike Deodato Jr. I really like the cover here. I thought the one cover a couple issues ago was one of the worst I've ever seen for the entire year. But I really like this cover because thematically it represents, I think, it represents that scene far better in the comic. Far better on the cover than it did in the comic, with Wally running and Linda, holding a young Wade, wondering where he is, or crying out for him, and being in the background. This cover was really nice. I like that. Pops off the page.
yeah, I thought it was pretty strong as well. So anyway, that does it for all the single issues, and in fact, that is all the single issues that are coming out this week. Unless you want to count the San Diego Comic-Con special books that are coming out, because there are a number of foil covers and what have you that are like conventions exclusives or whatever. But there's like a Batman 150. There's an All-Star Superman #1. There's a Batman Superman World's Finest #29. That was from last week. There's 2 of those that have special covers from Alex Ross. And then there's an Absolute Power #1 that is a San Diego exclusive. That's Jose Luis Garcia Lopez that I'll probably have to pick up while I'm at the show, just because it looks so good. But in terms of collections that are out this week, we've got a few. Let me just get there. Why is it showing me?
Well, I'm gonna start off by saying the collection that I absolutely want is a Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, the deluxe edition that finally by Tom King, that finally collects all 12 issues in one. I hate the fact when they just collect the trade paperbacks 6 issues at a time, which is not a complete story. I love the fact that we're getting the hardcover, which is I think a long time coming, and I've got a lot of Tom King hardcovers that are signed by Tom King and the artist, and I hope to get my Superwoman Woman of Tomorrow hardcover. I want to get it signed by Tom King and Bill Chris Everly. That's my wish.
There's also a Robin Tim Drake compendium, which it doesn't collect the Robin series that starred Tim Drake, but it basically collects everything that led up to that series. So, I mean, it's 1,128 pages for $60, so it's actually pretty good value. So you have when Tim Drake first shows up in Batman 455, 456, and 457, when he returns in 465 through 469 and 480, Detective 618 through 621, his first miniseries, which was 5 issues, so Robin 1 through 5, then Robin 2, Joker's Wild 1 through 4, Robin 3, Cry of the Huntress 1 through 6, the next miniseries, Robin 1 through 5, Robin Annual 1 and 2, a bunch of issues of Superman, and stories from Batman 80-page Giant and Showcase. So it's a massive tome. If you're Tim Drake Robin, want it all collected in one beautiful hardcover, definitely check that out. Poison Ivy Volume 2, so that collects issues 7 through 12 of the ongoing Poison Ivy series from G. Willow Wilson. We also have Batman and Robin. This collects the Mark Waid Batman and Robin run from the Lazarus Island. It led into Lazarus Island, so there's 5 issues of that. That's out this week as well. And then the hardcover Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow that Rocky mentioned that collects all 12 issues of that series. So, yeah, those are the collections this week. Those are the San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. And those are your DC books for the week. So, pick of the week, we kind of know what Rocky's choosing already.
Yeah, it's a Nice House by the Sea. I've been looking forward to it. I wasn't disappointed. Again, I encourage everybody. You'll get more out of it because if you haven't read Nice House by the Lake and you just read Nice House by the Sea, you might be a little bit lost. You probably get enough of it, but you'll get a far greater appreciation of it if you pick up the 12 issues of Nice House by the Lake and read it from issue 1 to 12. It reads so well, one after the other. I would encourage that before picking up Nice House by the Sea. But pick it up anyway, because I strongly, truly believe and hope that it becomes a Netflix series, or at some point becomes optioned. Maybe it already is. I think maybe it is, to be honest. But it's such a high recommend for me. But
yeah,
what about yourself?
It's good, but I still think it reads better as bigger story chunks.
Yeah.
Well, I'll throw an honorable mention to the Task Force or Absolute Power Origins, because again, John Ridley surprised me and made me hate Amanda Waller even more, which is really just an exceptional job of storytelling. I mean, at the end of the day, you want people to feel things. You want them to have an emotional reaction to your work, and Ridley did that. And I also, as much as I think that Nice House stories should be in a different format, this is the format we get, and it's still really, really well done. In one issue, we get the characters fleshed out and have a good understanding of them already. And I thought Layman did a fantastic job on his Absolute Power tie-in. But at the end of the day, I got to go with Batman Dark Age. Again, more of an appreciation for Mike Allred art than I ever have had. Love the tone of the story and the feel of the story that Mark Russell's narration is giving us. And it really leveled up. Like, I enjoyed it so much more than the previous 3 issues. So I'm giving my pick to that. It might have been a little different if the Alex Segura story, the Question story, had been in a standalone. But the other stories in Batman Brave and the Bold aren't strong enough for me to pick that, even though I might like that Alex Segura's Question story slightly more than the issue of Batman Dark Age. But yeah, the Mike Allred art and I should mention the colors by his wife Laura as well. So bright and vibrant, just a great story. So
yeah, for sure.
Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. I've been putting out tons of content. Everybody's wanted to come on before San Diego Comic-Con. Remember what I was saying about getting those announcements before the noise of San Diego? So many people have wanted to come on recently. I've done interviews with game makers and filmmakers and obviously comic publishers as well. So definitely be sure you're checking out the Comic Source YouTube channel, or if you want to listen to those audio only, just go to wherever you get your podcasts, whatever app or platform you like best. Do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. And all the content that we put out comes out audio only, but it also, you got 2,500 plus episodes of previous content to consume as well. So definitely appreciate the support, subscribers on YouTube, the views, and everybody that subscribes to the audio only. If you are listening to the audio only, don't forget to head over to YouTube and subscribe to Rocky's channel, where these DC spotlights come out every week. Comic Space Boom, ! And once you're there, you guys know what to do at this point, right? Leave some comments. Let us know what you thought. What's your book of the week? Really like to get conversations going in the comment section. Make sure to ring the notification bell so you know when new stuff comes out, and subscribe. All of it helps us expand our reach and get more access so we can do cool things like interviews at San Diego and what have you. So we appreciate the support as always. And I'll talk to you on the other side of San Diego Comic-Con, assuming I survive.
Yeah, I hope you survive, and I look forward to your reports, and I encourage everybody to check out the Comic Source and all the interviews that you're going to be doing, because I know I'll be listening. So
yeah. So that's going to do it, everybody. We will talk to you next time.
See you later.